for beginners trying to figure out Bitcoin, and it's been going almost 5 years strong now.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was for that long. Good stuff, man. Who's the guy with all the caps lock in his name? Who is that?
Hi, my name is Matt ODELL, and I'm addicted to Bitcoin.
It's nothing to be ashamed of, Matt. It's all right. Lucas, who are you? Who are you?
Hey, I'm Lucas from Brazil. I'm currently country manager for Pax in Brazil. I also had a YouTube channel, but I stopped doing that. Maybe I should get back to it.
We do need more Bitcoiner YouTubers because it's a little bit of a shitcoin cesspool right now.
It is, but it's getting better. If anyone here, by the way, is interested, this is currently streaming to Swan Bitcoin's YouTube channel. So you'll be able to go back and listen to the answers that are given and the questions that are asked. Also, if you know anyone who's interested, who might be interested in this Q&A session, who doesn't have Clubhouse or doesn't have an iPhone, you can point them there. And that's just youtube.com/Swan Signal. All right, let's get going. We got some questions to answer. Alejandro Garcia, welcome up. Please tell us something interesting about yourself and let us know your Bitcoin question. Alejandro, you have to accept. Are you accepting?
Hello, guys. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Awesome. Yeah. I pretty much found out of Bitcoin back in 2012 when a friend started talking to me about it. I am not very literate with computers, so that definitely looks so complicated to me, and I definitely missed my opportunity. Probably it's the same experience to many people in the audience. It was $12 back then, so yeah, definitely, like they say, the best time to buy Bitcoin was like 10 years ago, but the next best time is right now. So I'm here getting informed, and definitely I'm not missing any other chances anymore. So yeah, thank you for having me here on the stage with you guys. So my question would be best practices to store Bitcoin. I'm planning to focus on accumulating the most amount I can. So I would like to know about what would be the best recommendations for long-time storage, and yeah, making sure there's no errors on the way. Thank you, guys.
I can dive in. So it kind of depends on who you are, where you're coming from. You said that you're not like a computer whiz, so you might be a little timid around some of the solutions out there. I know a lot of Bitcoiners are very, very keen on a hardware wallet device called Coldcard, which is pretty kick-ass, I will say. There is a learning curve involved with kind of navigating through that. But if you're super timid, then diving into something like a Ledger or a Trezor can, suit most kind of non-technical people just fine and give you a pretty damn good amount of security for your average person. So yeah, it kind of depends on how comfortable you are. And even if you dive into one of the easier options, I would still recommend starting to go down the path of learning about what something like a Coldcard can offer. But it is an iterative process. So, you got to start somewhere. So yeah, Ledger, Trezor, easy. Coldcard, a little bit of a step up.
Alejandro, are you using a mobile wallet right now?
I do have my Coinbase account, so yeah, I'm starting off with that.
I mean, I assume you have an iPhone because everyone on this platform has an iPhone. So if you go to Blue Wallet on the iPhone App Store, it's my favorite iPhone wallet, and it's a really good way of just getting comfortable with some of the basics of a non-custodial wallet. So you mentioned you have the Coinbase wallet. The Coinbase wallet is a custodial wallet. What that means is Coinbase is holding your Bitcoin for you. This is a situation that people will find similar to like a PayPal or a Venmo, right? Where they hold or your bank, where they hold your money for you and you tell them when you want to send it and you have to trust them. The whole point of Bitcoin is that you don't have to do that if you don't want to do that. So what you want to use is something called a non-custodial wallet where you hold your own keys and you have full control over your Bitcoin. Now, Ben mentioned the cold card, which is like pretty much the industry leading way of upgrading your security when you want to hold your keys yourself. But the interim step, which is really nice, is using these iPhone wallets that also let you have your own keys. So my favorite way of learning is go onto the App Store, download this wallet called Blue Wallet, send a tiny bit of Bitcoin, send like $10 worth of Bitcoin from Coinbase to Blue Wallet. Back up your Blue Wallet. They're going to have this backup method where you write down this word phrase, this random word phrase you write down on a piece of paper. Then you erase the wallet, uninstall the wallet, reinstall the wallet, and when you go to reinstall it, it's going to ask you if you want to restore from a backup, and then you can go through. You can just put those words back in, and your money should still be there. So you can really get some experience and comfort with how the whole process works with the backup restores. You could send and receive back and forth from your Coinbase wallet, and just really learn how that process works.
Very good. Yeah. More regarding those 12 words, the seed words and phrases. If I get my 24 or 12 words from Ledger, for example, which is one that I'm looking into right now, I'm wondering if there's a way to use those same words on a different platform in case, let's say, that Ledger down in the line a few years after ends up disappearing. Is it something that my private wallet would be always able to be recouped if I want to have those series of words?
100%. So those 12 to 24 words, for the most part, are interoperable between any device and or software wallet. So basically, a wallet is a little bit of a funny name for what it actually is. Your wallet just contains the keys to your money, because the Bitcoin network is basically a big ledger of who owns what in the cloud, more or less. And your keys just give you the credentials to move certain Bitcoin. So yeah, when you write down that 12 to 24 word phrase, if you want to recover on a different device or a different software wallet, then you can absolutely do that. One important thing to note, though, is let's say you were using, for instance, like you were saying, a ledger, and you were given those 12 to 24 words. The purpose of the ledger is that that wallet or those keys are created offline. And that's what makes it more secure than just a wallet on your phone. And so it's not always the best idea to import those keys into, just an app on your phone or on your computer, if it's going to continue to be your long-term savings account, for lack of a better term. So it's good to keep those words offline, never put them into an internet-connected device. In fact, never even keep them digital. And if you do need to recover them, it's best to recover them via a replacement device, directly into that ledger or Trezor or cold card or whatever you're using, as opposed to a downloaded Blue Wallet. So keeping those keys offline perpetually is kind of the best bet there.
I would say that even more important than the hardware wallet is having where you're gonna store your backup. If you're storing your backup for a long time and it's a reasonable amount of money, I would recommend you to get some metal wallet, some metal device where you can store your backup.
So he's being a little modest here, but I'd also recommend checking out BTC Sessions' YouTube page. He has tutorials on pretty much every wallet known to man. So I would highly recommend those two.
Thanks, Brett.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Last question. If I have my wallet where I'm storing my Bitcoin, I can just use a public wallet that I get from it and just continue adding to it just time in the future, right? without having to even touch the storage device, correct?
Yes, but what you mean is your address. You can generate an address, and once you generate an address, that address will always be your address. You can keep sending money to it, but that's not great for privacy. You really want to generate a new address for every payment. Otherwise, because it is publicly on the Bitcoin ledger, if you have a bunch of people send payments to the same address, all of those payments are linked together. Anyone who pays you knows that you got paid from all those other people, and anyone who looks on the chain can see this one person got all these payments. So you can do it. You will still have your Bitcoin, but it's not great for privacy.
Hey, Matt. So for someone who's just starting out and it might be their first hardware wallet, and they're learning the ropes of Bitcoin, what would you suggest is like the ideal way to kind of get started while also maybe taking privacy into consideration? Because I know when I first started, privacy was like the furthest thing from my mind, and frankly, only after listening to you on Tales from the Crypt did I actually start thinking about it.
I mean, I think most users, privacy-wise, it should kind of take a little bit of a backseat in the beginning with Bitcoin. I think the most important thing is that users should be aware of the risks and aware that Bitcoin is not private by default. If you use one of these regulated on-ramps like Swan, you do have to provide identifying information to them. They do have to keep it for regulatory reasons. They have to hold on to it. So that is a trusted relationship. You have to pick your services carefully. If you use one of these services, you have to actually trust them and know that that's a trusted relationship for years in the future, which is fine. We trust many companies in our day-to-day lives, but you have to know that's the case. I think that's super important. And then you have to know that when you're transacting on chain, when you're actually transacting with Bitcoin, especially if you come from one of these regulated services and the Bitcoin is directly tied to your name, it is relatively easy to track you going forward. So you don't assume when you make a Bitcoin payment that the world knows you made that Bitcoin payment. And then as you learn more, then you can improve your privacy, but just operate under the assumption that you don't have privacy.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And for anyone listening who is interested in Bitcoin privacy, there's a great website. It's bitcoin-only.com/privacy. Matt, isn't there another one, Bitcoin Privacy Guide? Do you know that one?
It's bitcoinprivacy.guide.
Got it. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much, Alejandro. We're going to send you back down, and we're going to pull someone else up. Oh, sorry, I cut you off, but you're welcome. All right, who do we got next? I apologize that we're probably not going to be able to go in order because this app is a little, the UX needs some work. Kim, welcome to the stage. Tell us one interesting thing about yourself and let us know your Bitcoin question.
Thank you for letting me in. What's interesting about me? Oh, that's a big question. I guess I live in Florida. Is that interesting?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, so my question is about the wallet, the device. You said that I can you mentioned that you don't plug it in to the internet. How does it then transfer Bitcoin into it?
So again, it's a little bit of a misconception about what a wallet actually is. So if you think of how a bank operates, they have a ledger of who owns what in what account. And that's not exactly how the back end of Bitcoin works in a technical sense, but more or less it's an online record of who owns what. And your wallet is more or less creating keys to a digital vault that you have access to. All of these digital vaults effectively already kind of exist. There's just so many possibilities that the likelihood of somebody randomly generating the same wallet as you is just nearly impossible. So you don't need to be connected to the internet ever to create a Bitcoin wallet. So while you wouldn't do this typically, I know Matt ODELL has, but you can actually create a Bitcoin wallet by rolling dice or doing math on a piece of paper, or there's a lot of different ways to do it. And you're not required to be connected to the internet in order to do that. All you're doing is, again, you have a digital key. One way I like to think about it is, if you have a device that's not connected to the internet and that device holds the key to your Bitcoin, even if you do plug it into a computer to approve a transaction, to say, hey, I have the keys to move this particular Bitcoin, then you are not actually sharing a copy of the key with your computer or with your phone or whatever you're using it with. You're just proving that you have the keys to that particular Bitcoin. It's kind of like if you were standing in front of your house and you had the keys to your house and you were telling somebody, hey, I own this house. You could do that two ways. You could give them your key and they could go and have potentially access to anything in your home, or you could just go and unlock the door and show them that you have the key. So more or less, when you're using a device that doesn't share the keys to your Bitcoin with the internet, it's just a way of proving you have those keys without sharing around a copy of them.
It's kind of difficult to wrap your mind around, but it's basically using cryptography in the background to do this. And I'm not sure, but maybe the question was also referring to like air-gapped wallets. We didn't talk about that, so maybe never mind.
Well, so let's say you have some money in an exchange and you want to put it into a hardware device, let's say Legend or the other ones. How do I move it?
Kim, one thing to keep in mind here is because like the Bitcoin network doesn't know what's a real address and what isn't a real address. So like I can send money to any address I want to send money to. It never has been used, never has hit the internet, it never existed. And there might be someone who can spend that money, or there might not be someone who can spend that money, but I'm allowed to send it regardless. So there's a bunch of Bitcoin that's just sitting in addresses that no one will ever be able to spend because no one has those addresses.
So to kind of to bring it back around and answer your question, let's say you have Bitcoin on Coinbase, right? And you go to withdraw that Bitcoin and there's a place there to enter the withdrawal address. Now, when you set up a hardware wallet, it will give you an address to a receiving address to use, which you could then manually type into Coinbase. I don't recommend manually typing it because you might make a mistake. But you don't actually have to connect a hardware wallet to the internet in order to receive Bitcoin. With some of them, you do have to connect them to your computer in order to spend that Bitcoin. But then there are more advanced hardware wallets, for example, where you don't even have to connect it to the computer. We might be getting over our skis here a little bit. You don't have to connect it to a computer because you can do what's called a partially signed Bitcoin transaction. Which is essentially where you would use something like an SD card to create the transaction and then kind of send it from your actual computer. I don't know if that's confusing or helping.
So let's step back.
Simplify a little bit. You could, to understand what a Bitcoin transaction is, I will simplify a lot. But you're actually saying to the Bitcoin ledger that you had some Bitcoins that are controlled by some specific private key, and now you're sending it to the custody of another private key. But when you create an address in your hardware wallet, what you're doing is creating an address that is controlled by that private key, your private key. So when you do a transaction, a withdrawal transaction in Coinbase, you're sending those Bitcoins to your possession. You will only need your private keys when you need to move those Bitcoins, because the transaction in the Bitcoin ledger is only showing you all the blockchain, all people running nodes, that now your private key controls that Bitcoins.
For you, what this means is, if you have Bitcoin on an exchange, all you need to have is a wallet, whether it be a hardware wallet or whether it be software wallet. but you just go to your wallet and hit the receive button, and you'll be given a string of digits, which you can copy. There's usually a button that you click to copy that string of digits, which is your address. And then you go to your exchange account and hit withdrawal and paste in that address. It's good to double check that it's the same address, just in case anything got messed up. And then you just hit withdrawal, and it will be sent from the exchange, which has control over it, into your wallet, which they do not have control over. So pretty much it's copy your receive address, tell the exchange where to send it to, and you're off to the races.
Even though you're not connected to the internet?
You'll be connected to the internet, but the keys that allow you to later spend that Bitcoin are effectively like blocked off from the internet. They're kind of segregated so that people can't also spend your Bitcoin. But yes, you'll still have some sort of connection.
So, ladies and gents, we've been joined by Mr. Andreas Antonopoulos, who literally wrote the book on this stuff. Andreas, anything to add?
I literally just walked in, so I have no idea what you're talking about. I just saw that this was beginner Bitcoin Q&A, and I thought I might come in.
No worries. Well, welcome.
Thank you so much.
To transfer the Bitcoin from the Coinbase to the wallet, initially, I do not have to connect to the internet, correct?
Right. So, using Coinbase, you'll be on the internet, but
right.
But when you input the address where you want to send the Bitcoin from Coinbase, at that point, everything's handled by Bitcoin itself. So you don't actually have to, how do I explain this?
Can I help?
Please.
Yeah. So, you know how if you have your bank ATM card in your purse, someone can still deposit money into your bank account because you don't have to have your ATM card out or plugged into an ATM in order to receive money into your bank account. Same thing applies with Bitcoin. Your wallet doesn't have to be online, doesn't have to be connected at all for someone to send you money. All they need to know is your address, and then they can send money to that address. So when you're transferring from Coinbase to your own wallet, what you're doing is you're having Coinbase send money to an address that belongs to your wallet, that your wallet controls. And your wallet doesn't have to be online to receive that money. You only need to sign a transaction to spend that money. And even for that, your wallet doesn't have to be online. In fact, the best types of wallets, which are cold wallets, stay offline. And they sign your transactions from a distance, and then you send those transactions on the internet.
Okay, but still, when you receive the ATM card, your debit card, the bank activates it in such a way they have your information on the net, on their system, on their database, and then when you make that phone call to activate it,
but you do not need to do that because Bitcoin addresses and keys are generated by mathematical computation, and you don't need to get on the internet to do that math. So someone can pay to a Bitcoin address that's never been seen by the Bitcoin network at all. All they have to do is say, hey, I want to lock this Bitcoin, and the only one who can unlock it is whoever has the keys to this address. And it doesn't matter if the Bitcoin network has never seen that address before. As long as you have the keys behind it, you can go and unlock that Bitcoin whenever you want.
It has the Bitcoin network has my hardware device wallet key.
It does not. It does not at all. The keys are created on a device that does not speak to the Bitcoin network at all. They're generated offline. You could even generate them with pencil and paper. You do not need to connect to the Bitcoin network in order to generate keys or addresses.
Then how does it know that your wallet has money in it, and that your wallet? I mean, how is it all relate to each other?
So what's recorded on the Bitcoin blockchain is that such and such address has ownership of Bitcoin. So when Coinbase sends you money to your address, they're not sending it to your wallet. They're simply announcing to the Bitcoin network, we're going to transfer ownership of this Bitcoin to whoever has the keys for this address. The Bitcoin network doesn't know who has the keys for this address, but it records the fact that ownership of Bitcoin has transferred on the blockchain. Okay. Then you show up with a wallet and you say, hey, I can prove that I have the keys to that address. Look, my wallet can sign a transaction. And when you sign a transaction to spend the Bitcoin, you prove to the network that you have the keys behind that address. The network can validate that signature, and therefore it knows that you have control of that address. So all the Bitcoin is only on the blockchain. It doesn't move. It doesn't go from one person to the other. It simply changes who the registered, who controls it by changing which address it belongs to. And then you come along with your wallet and you sign transactions to prove that you in fact control the keys.
Oh, because when I first bought the device, I generated a key. I inputted that key into Coinbase to transfer the money, so they recorded that key.
It's not a key. What you you generated a key on your wallet, but the key never leaves. It's like your secret PIN number. It never leaves.
Right.
But it also generated an address, which is the thing that publicly identifies you, and that you can share. That's what you put into Coinbase, and you tell Coinbase, transfer ownership of the Bitcoin to this address. I have the keys for it, but here it is.
Kim, one thing it's good for you to understand.
No, it's very interesting. It's just basically the hardware generates a key, an address, and Bitcoin. It goes into the Bitcoin network, and Bitcoin network has that address, so it stores it forever. It's live forever, and that's how you identify it.
Hey Kim, have you read Inventing Bitcoin by any chance yet?
A lot of people told me I have so many books I'm supposed to read. I come on these clubhouses because it expedites my learning curve.
100%. Well, if you'd like this book, there's a link in my profile for a free copy. And it's a short one, only about 2 to 3 hours in terms of reading time. And what I love about it is it explains everything that Andreas was talking about in terms of like the different aspects of how Bitcoin works in a very kind of easy to understand way. And it'll give you a really thorough understanding of, what Bitcoin really is.
Is a Bitcoin network on I have 2 more questions. Is Bitcoin network on a separate network than any other network out there? Is it a dedicated network?
No, it's a internet service. It runs on top of the internet.
Okay.
Just like the web or email is, we call the web a network, but it's really a specific application that runs, or a specific protocol that runs inside the internet.
Okay, that's what I thought. The third question is, who manages the guy who invented this, Satoshi? Well, is he still? I mean, is there a governance around Bitcoin network and all the APIs and all the software that runs it, and any future products that's going to be built upon it? I mean, who's managing? Is there developers? Is there a bunch of developers that are actually, releasing software onto the network?
There are a bunch of developers, but the common language that the Bitcoin protocol speaks can be developed by anyone, and people can release competing software, and different people can decide to run different software. So think about this question the same way that you would ask the question, who runs the web? Well, different companies build products around the web as a common language. They write software around the web, but nobody runs the web itself. It's just a set of common standards that everybody has agreed to. And in fact, they don't change very often. There are developers who work on the core protocols of the web, of the email protocol, and of Bitcoin. But other people put those into products and software and apps to share them with everyone. Satoshi Nakamoto, who is gone, had disappeared in April of 2010. We do not know if it is one person or two people, male or female, groups of people. And Satoshi Nakamoto has no more control over Bitcoin than I do, which is to say precisely zero. Nobody controls it. Everybody works together through the rules of the protocol, and the network runs automatically based on rules that are encoded in math.
So there's there's no like software testing and software release management.
There's a very much that, yes. There is a lot of software testing, and a lot of very, very talented software developers work on different parts of the core protocol, the most commonly used software, but they don't decide what the rules of Bitcoin are. They just write the software to work by those rules, and then you decide by the software that you choose to run, and you enforce the rules in every piece of software that runs the Bitcoin protocol.
So there's no governance at all?
There's collaborative governance, and it emerges from the participation of everybody in the Bitcoin system.
So
Bitcoin is whatever you run.
So there's a consortium of engineers that check and balance the software. I mean, after all, it is a piece of software.
Well, there's various implementations of the software.
Yeah, it's not a piece of software. It's many different pieces of software all speaking the same language.
Exactly. So there's got to be some sort of management in control, right?
You know how open source development works?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with software development and release management and testing and QA. And even if you have open system, you still have to have some sort of management and control in QA testing process. Is that right or no?
So one thing to keep in mind is any individual can choose to run what's known as a Bitcoin node. And your Bitcoin node hosts a copy of basically every transaction that has ever happened, as well as the underlying rules that are kind of mutually agreed upon with that system. If the developers that work on Bitcoin were to release a new version of Bitcoin that changed it in some way that people did not like, they would simply not upgrade, and those changes more or less would not take place, especially if they are not backwards compatible, which there's been a lot of back and forth over in the past, and typically doesn't go very well, especially in the past few years, if somebody tries to introduce a non-backwards compatible version of Bitcoin. So effectively, if you were running a Bitcoin node in its current iteration, hosting all of the previous transactions, keeping track of who owns what, and if you were to also, with that node have all of the underlying rules, if there was an upgrade or a proposed upgrade to that and you opted out of that, you continue utilizing the Bitcoin network as you see fit with the rules that you are opting into. So it's always opt in. You can never be forced to upgrade your Bitcoin node.
Kim, I have to be the bearer of bad news. I think you've asked 21 questions, all of which were good ones, but we've got over 21 people with their hands raised, so we've got to send you back down. We're going to bring someone else up, but I hope we answered most of your questions. And then just real quick, because I see we have a lot of new people in the room, this is a Cafe Bitcoin room, and we do this beginner Bitcoin Q&A Mondays and Wednesdays. If you'd like to get notified of that, click on the little Cafe Bitcoin icon at the top left and join the club, and you can get notified. We're trying to get all sorts of different speakers with Bitcoin experience to do these sessions, like our friend BTC Sessions. And we also have a lot of other great rooms like Bitcoin in Portuguese, Bitcoin in Spanish, and we have a new topic every day. So give that a check that out when you have a chance. Kim, thank you so much. I'm going to send you back.
Can I just say thank you for indulging me?
Of course. They were honest. I really love these kind of questions that lead to other questions, but we do have some hand raised. So
thank you.
Thank you, Kim. All right. We are going to bring someone else up. I hope it's someone who was here earlier. Arthur Campos, welcome to the stage. Tell us one interesting thing about you. It doesn't have to be true. It can be fake. Just make it interesting. And then let us know your Bitcoin question.
All right. Thank you so much. My name is Arthur. I'm a photographer from Brazil, as well as Lucas here. Hello, Lucas. Glad to see you here. Nice that you pinged me here. And I'd like to follow up on Alejandro's question about best practices for accumulation and long-term savings. I'd like very much to know best practices for passing on your Bitcoin after you die. I've heard about multi-sig and a service called Final Message. So what is your personal way of perpetuating your property to your family if you happen to lose your conscience or die or get arrested, you know? What are you actually doing right now in terms of best practices for safely guarding your Bitcoin forever? Especially Andreas, I'd like to know from you. How can I say that? I'm a huge fan of you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Arthur. Let me answer that question by, in fact, referring to the foremost expert in this space, who is Pamela Morgan Esquire. She's an attorney, and she's written a book called Crypto Asset Inheritance Planning, a simple guide for owners. I wrote the foreword of that book, and I was a technical consultant on that book. And I've followed a lot of the advice in there. One of the things to understand about inheritance planning is that, well, there's several, but let me start with this one. It is not enough to have a technical plan without having a legal plan. It is not enough to have a legal plan without having a technical means of executing that plan. And if you try to do only one or the other, you run into trouble. Most of the things you'll see out there that discuss this focus on technology as if the basic problem of inheritance is just simply how to transfer keys. That is not really the biggest problem in inheritance. Although you can do it in ways that make it very, very dangerous. Dangerous for your heirs, dangerous for your security. And a lot of people are trying to solve this with technology, from smart contracts to various companies that are startups and brand new. I would not go in that direction. Often very, very simple systems that have been carefully tested and are guaranteed to work are the best approach. You can inherit, you can pass on Bitcoin from a technical perspective as simply as providing instructions to a vault that can be accessed or a safe deposit box that can be accessed after your death that contains a mnemonic phrase. That technical part is relatively simple and you can do it quite easily. The bigger question is, how do you do the legal plan? And there it gets very complicated. And of course, it depends on which legal jurisdiction you're in. So I would suggest looking up Crypto Asset Inheritance Planning, the book, Pamela Morgan's work. She has a bunch of blog posts on Empowered Law, her website. I've talked about it. I've done videos about it. And try to think of it more broadly, take a step back, and rather than thinking about the technical solution, think about what you're trying to do for inheritance, what the laws in your country are like, and see how you can combine both a technical and a legal plan.
Hey, Arthur, you know, I've heard of this final message thing, but I heard the founder is kind of a shady character. Has anyone else heard of this final message thing? Anybody know about this?
I think he is also obsessed with caps lock, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, so I mean, Arthur, I created Final Message because I had the same exact concern last cycle. It's not a perfect option. There are no perfect options. I think Andreas's recommendations there were pretty solid. I think an important thing to consider is that with Bitcoin, you know, you have to practice radical personal responsibility. If you're being a proper Bitcoiner and you're holding your own keys. And when it comes to inheritance, you have to create a plan that works for you and your family in a way that doesn't make that personal responsibility fall on your heirs too much if you don't want it to, right? Because otherwise heirs become they become not only a vulnerability to themselves, but they become a vulnerability to themselves.
And a target. Yes, that's very, very true, Matt. A lot of the complexities that happen with inheritance planning have to do with the fact that putting those kinds of responsibilities on heirs can be very damaging to families. And with crypto, a lot of those things are magnified, especially with large amounts of, if you have large holdings in Bitcoin. People try to do fancy things or weird things. They try to hide keys in very complicated ways, almost creating like a treasure hunt, where at the end of the treasure map there is a stash of Bitcoin that people can inherit through their wit. These are very dangerous schemes, of course, because one of the things most people don't think about is that in your family, you are the Bitcoin expert. You are the person they'd ask. Like if somebody said, hey, I think somebody has Bitcoin inheritance, everyone in my family would be like, well, let's ask Andreas. Everybody in Matt's family would be, oh, let's ask Matt. Well, that's the person who's no longer around. So then what do? A lot of inheritance planning actually starts with identifying, in fact, that's the first chapter of Pamela's book, is identifying helpers, making a list of people who can be trusted, who hopefully at least some of them are still alive, who your relatives can seek help from, and leaving information that those people can understand, because your heirs will not have the technical understanding to know what a mnemonic phrase is. And so a lot of it is maybe as simple as having a letter to loved ones that says, listen, I have cryptocurrency, I have saved some for you, and here are the 3 people you should reach out to help you, who will know what to do next. Do not talk to anyone else, because otherwise what they're going to do is they're going to go on Reddit and they're going to be like, I think my friend left a stash. How do I get it? And someone's going to help themselves. And there are a lot of risks like that, which have nothing to do with the technology. They're about people vulnerabilities. And with inheritance, what you're doing is the one expert is gone, and all of the people vulnerabilities transfer to the least expert people who are the heirs, who had nothing to do, presumably, and don't want to learn about these things.
Yeah, I understand. It's a heavy burden. So what is the name of Pamela's book again?
Crypto Asset Inheritance Planning. Her website,
all right,
Empowered Law, because it has free materials. Rather than, I'm not telling you to buy a book, but empoweredlaw.com has some free material.
Cool. And all right, you can.
One more other thing, like just remember that it's not just a Bitcoin thing, right? You have other tools at your disposal that are outside of Bitcoin. Things like lawyers, people don't think about that. You can have a lawyer have one part of your inheritance.
Yeah, exactly. There are companies that can help you with this. I don't know if Casa is doing this, but I think Unchained is helping with inheritance planning as well. So worth looking into. Alrighty, Arthur, thank you so much for joining us.
One more question, just
all right, quick one.
What is the problem for storing all I have in Blue Wallet? Really, is there a problem with that? Should I go for a cold wallet?
Yes. So Blue Wallet, the keys to your money are on an internet connected device, and therefore all of your funds are only as secure as that device. A hardware device will get the keys to your funds and keep them segregated offline, so that something like your phone can't just be hacked and people can get into and utilize the keys to send your money outside of your control. So if you have a large amount of Bitcoin or more than you would be comfortable carrying around in cash in your pocket on your phone, it's probably time to start looking into getting a hardware device to keep yourself more secure.
And just to clarify, it's not the problem isn't Blue Wallet itself. Blue Wallet's a great wallet. but it's the class, and the class of wallet that you described is known as a hot wallet because it's on an internet connected device. The problem is that it's a hot wallet, and any hot wallet, be it Blue Wallet or any other wallet, is the same problem. So it's like saying, what's the problem with me burying my money in a paper bag in the ground? Well, what if it's a McDonald's paper bag? What if it's a Burger King paper bag? You know, the problem is it's a paper bag. It doesn't matter which brand is on it, right? It might be the most fantastic paper bag in the world. It's still a paper bag.
All right, that'll be it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Arthur. Well, I'll accept that second question because it was a really good second question. I'm going to send you back down. Benny, would you mind choosing someone at random from the hand raisers to bring them up, please?
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, let me take a look. This is my first time doing
Hand
this,
raisers.
So the hand.
We need a better name. I was going off the cuff here. The new Bitcoiners. How about that?
The handyman.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Let's see here. Let's do Felipe. I'll bring him up, and there we go. Brekkie, take it away.
Sounds good. Andreas, we actually have a rule up on stage, by the way. When you come up on stage, you have to tell everyone one interesting thing about yourself. So lay it on us. What do you got for us?
Guys,
I'm a private pilot.
All right, we'll take it.
I wish that was my interesting fact. No, I guess I'm from United States, Mississippi. I'm graduating architecture school this year, so excited.
Very nice. Congrats.
Thank you. So I got to get into crypto, and I guess we're trying to figure out what is the best for the United States. How would you rank, I guess, crypto.com, Binance, all the other kind of crypto services, and what would be the best one for not just the main cryptos, but also altcoins?
Well, since this is a cafe Bitcoin room, I don't really want to. We'll do you right. If you are going to dabble in altcoins, which I don't personally recommend, I don't think you can go wrong with. Oh God, don't kill me, Matt. But Coinbase or Binance, any of the bigger ones that have a good reputation. But that being said, frankly, for anyone who's new to the space, I highly, highly recommend choosing a Bitcoin only on ramp and really, really diving down the Bitcoin rabbit hole before getting into anything else. Really learn what Bitcoin is and why it's important, and then choose to go and study what you will.
I'm surprised you didn't mention Kraken, which
Kraken too, yeah,
covers both of those and really has some excellent capabilities.
I haven't traded in years, so I don't even think about exchanges anymore. I just look for. I've been using River and now Swan for a very long time now, and just kind of buying automatically.
Well, awesome. And I appreciate Andreas's kind of explanation of the hot versus cold wallet, just because I noticed on Twitter earlier there was a big exchange of 5 billion or something like that of Bitcoin into a cold wallet. So I wasn't sure if that's what kind of caused the dip earlier this morning. So yeah, thank you so much, Andreas, for explaining the difference between the cold and hot wallets.
You're welcome.
Alrighty, Felipe, thank you so much. We're going to send you back down. Matt ODELL, would you mind choosing someone at random from the new Bitcoiners? The handyman.
I'm excited to.
The handmaiden.
We'll come up with a name by the end of the show.
I'll just keep throwing names out there.
I think I picked someone.
Say their name, because sometimes they're not looking at their phone, they're not paying attention. Oh, Rob.
Welcome, Rob.
All right, Rob, tell us an interesting fact about yourself, and then let us know your Bitcoin question.
Yeah, I'm a gin distiller in Oxford, Mississippi.
Well, we're going to need to get some of that gin. All right, on to the question.
Oh, man.
Could you guys break down sort of layer 1, layer 2 for us in just a pretty basic way? I would really appreciate it.
Sorry, what was
just
that,
thinking,
layer 2?
Well, I read a lot and I think I understand it, but hearing from some of you guys about the different layers and the settlement layers and how they work together, I think would be helpful.
Sort of how layer 1 Bitcoin, what is layer 1 Bitcoin? How does it work? And then what is layer 2 Bitcoin and how does that work in relation to layer 1?
Thank you. That's exactly right.
Yep.
There's definitely a lot to tackle, kind of, even though it's a short, pretty concise question. Yeah, I guess where to start. If you're downloading a regular Bitcoin wallet, then you're going to be interacting on layer 1, which is effectively, being able to receive and send Bitcoin on the Bitcoin blockchain. And those transactions are recorded on the Bitcoin blockchain, which is a record of all transactions that have ever happened. Whereas there's a limited amount of computation that can be done on the base layer of Bitcoin. There's a limited amount of data that can be put through the network every 10 minutes, roughly. And so with that limitation, there's reasons for that. Bitcoin has gone the route of making it accessible for anybody to run a copy of the Bitcoin blockchain, so it's not inhibitively expensive to do so. But with that, yes, there are limitations of how many transactions per second you can do. And since there are fees on the base layer, it can get expensive if you want to get a transaction through in a short period of time. So one of the things trying to be solved with layer 2, things like the Lightning Network, is to allow you to send Bitcoin quickly and very cheaply, without having to pay the high fees of the Bitcoin blockchain or be waiting a long time, effectively locking up Bitcoin into contracts and allowing that quick movement of coins. With layer 2, I'd say with Lightning Network specifically is what I'm referring to. It's 1-to-1. The Bitcoin is there. You can't have Lightning Bitcoin without underlying Bitcoin. So it's effectively Lightning, is I imagine what you were alluding to, is just a mechanism to be able to spend quickly and cheaply without getting too deep into the weeds here.
No, that's very helpful. I just, as I get more and more into this world, and I've been around for a few years, I just want to start to understand it on a more technical level. And I know it's very complicated. Thank you.
I was going to say, if you're looking to play with Lightning but not dive in too technically, I did do a couple beginner videos on Lightning wallets. One that I use quite regularly that's on both iOS and Android is Breeze. And so this I like because a lot of the technical bits are kind of abstracted away, but you're still, in control more or less of your own Bitcoin. You're running a Lightning node on your phone, but you can interact on the Lightning Network. But if you want to interact with a regular Bitcoin address, like if somebody you're sending funds to does not have a Lightning wallet, you can still scan the regular Bitcoin address and send, and it will swap automatically. So I would play around with Breeze Wallet as kind of a starter, dipping your toes into Lightning Network. I did do a video on how to use it. I believe Matt did a video on how to use it as well, but there's tons of great tutorials out there. So yeah, dip your toes in.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys.
BREEZ.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rob. I'm going to put the next person on Lucas. Lucas, do me a favor and pick someone at random.
Okay. And just in general for the whole audience, like the best way to learn about these things is just play around with them with small amounts of money. Like just get your hands dirty and just get comfortable.
If anyone's a video gamer, there's some really cool stuff going on with Lightning these days. Shoot me a DM if you're interested, but you can do something like play CSGO and pay an entry fee using the Lightning Network, paying like 8 cents worth of Bitcoin to play, and then you can play against other people and earn Bitcoin as well. So there's some really, really cool stuff that's happening and even more on the horizon. Lucas, who'd you pick? Who do we got?
I'm trying some, but they don't. Allison, wanna join? They don't respond.
Ah, all right, Allison.
Diogo, can you get up? Okay, next one. Oh, okay, Allison.
Hi.
Hey,
Hello.
Tell us something about yourself.
I just joined Clubhouse, and this is my first room I am attending.
Well, this is a great way to kick it off. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. My question is about loaning Bitcoin and other cryptos. I see on some of the platforms you can kind of lend it out and get a return on what you have. And I'm curious if you recommend that or if you have any experience or advice in that regard.
I mean, that's kind of it's a difficult thing, and everyone kind of has to figure it out for themselves. Personally, I don't think it's worth it, the rates that are given. Most times when you're lending out your Bitcoin, in most cases, you're giving up control of your private keys. So, in a worst case scenario, you might never get that Bitcoin back. And to me, it's a cost benefit analysis. You have to weigh the risks, right? And to me, the rates that are offered for any of these services just isn't high enough to merit me giving up my custody. So that's my personal take on it. The one thing that's interesting to me is something like the loans that Unchained Capital does, where it's the Bitcoin is held in a multi-sig situation. So it's an over-collateralized loan, and you get a fiat loan, which you could then do with what you want. But in terms of like these, like BlockFi, for example, nothing against BlockFi, but you're kind of the product there. You're giving them your Bitcoin, and they're able to then do with it what they will. And I don't think that you're compensated well enough to merit the risk. That's just me, though.
I'd like to add something from the perspective of economics and answer this a slightly different way. One of the reasons that people assume that they must earn interest on their investments, either in the form of dividends or appreciation, compounding, or some kind of return on investment, is because we are used to operating in an environment where the underlying asset has inflation, and very often high inflation that constantly erodes the value of your investment. So if you are investing in dollar-denominated assets or euro-denominated assets, or anything that's not like physical gold or some other scarce thing, the end result is that anywhere from 2% to, some people say, up to 10% at the moment with the US dollar is being lost every year in inflation. So obviously, if you're not earning interest, your money is literally losing value, and any asset that's denominated in that money is losing value. So it's a bit like you're sliding backwards on an icy road. So you have to start running forwards just to stay put. And if you're used to that, the first time you get on an escalator that's actually moving forward, you still have a tendency to want to run. And the problem is that Bitcoin isn't an inflationary asset. It's the exact opposite. It's disinflationary.
One thing, sorry.
And as a result, it's the return you get is through the increase in purchasing power that occurs simply because it has disinflationary properties. You don't need additional return. And if you try running forward on the escalator that's already going up, you have a very big risk of tripping. The counterparty risk in lending out to BlockFi or other things far outweighs the small return that you might get. And 6% seems like a lot, but it's not really, given the overall purchasing power increase of Bitcoin. It's not worth the risk. But we're inclined to do it because we're so used to using inflationary assets and dollar-denominated assets that we have to. Otherwise, we're losing money all the time.
One other thing I would add. Oh, sorry, Matt. I would add that Bitcoin
is designed to pump forever.
Yeah. One other thing I would add is when you lend money to some of these companies, the interest they are paying you is based there are some guys, some hedge fund managers borrowing that money to trade, to arbitrate, to do arbitrage. And there's a book called When Genius Failed. It's about hedge fund management that it was a lot of PhDs and really experts on doing arbitrage, and they failed. So when you lend money to some of these companies, you need to be really trusting they are really more even smarter than these guys that failed in the 90s. So it's a lot of risk. I don't think the return they're giving is compared to the risk they are taking.
I might chime in a little bit here as well. It's a very kind of personal decision to make. Again, I would echo a little bit of what's said here. The rates, you've got to balance that with the risk. As Andreas was saying, we're so used to having to seek return because our money is not serving us well and is not doing the job that it should. We finally have a money that is just leaps and bounds beyond what was available to us previously. And, before that risk made sense because you're operating at a loss effectively. And now with Bitcoin, not that it necessarily is guaranteed to continue this way, but for the past 12 years or so, you're operating at a massive gain. And so you have to ask yourself, am I okay with giving up the security of holding my own funds for 6%? And so some people may say yes. Other people and a lot of people will probably say no. Now, there's another thing to consider here with some of these companies, and this is something that I personally have utilized at times when I thought it worth it, is if you don't want to sell your Bitcoin and incur capital gains, people like Unchained and other companies, they allow you to get dollars in exchange for your Bitcoin as a over collateralized loan. And so those are things that pop up as well, but you really have to examine the risk, because again, if you get a loan in dollars and Bitcoin drops a substantial amount, you may have to then top up your collateral or risk getting your Bitcoin liquidated from you. So there's a lot to think about it. I wouldn't take any of these decisions lightly, and I would really look into the potential consequences of anything you may do.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Allison. And welcome, Stefan Livera. Oh, man, one of my favorite people. Stefan, we have a tradition up here on stage for Bitcoin Beginner Q&A. You have to tell us all something interesting about yourself that we don't already know.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks very much for the welcome. All right. When I was in cadets as a kid, I had all my gear burnt in a fire while I was away at camp. So that was a little sad story, but it was an interesting experience, basically kind of being like a homeless guy for like a week. I basically, not for the whole week, because the camp goes for a week, but then basically I slept in the medic tent that night. So it was an interesting experience, because basically I was supervising these year 8 kids. I was a year 11 kid at the time. So I was supervising these year 8 kids, and, one of the kids I think had been playing around with some cigarette lighter or something, and then basically during the day that tent had gone up in fire. So a bit of a random story for you guys.
You don't hear that on the Stefan Livera podcast. This is why Clubhouse is special. All right, I'm going to bring someone else up. Who do we got? Jesse Brubaker, come on up to the stage. Tell us something interesting about yourself and let us know if you have a Bitcoin question. Actually, you better have a Bitcoin question, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah. Hi. Let's see. I have been addicted to whitewater kayaking lately, but I kind of want to talk about wallets.
All right, let's do it.
Just a couple questions. I've been playing around with wallets for a few years, I guess. Want to know what you guys think of like the air-gapped QR code type. Don't know if you ever heard of the LAPAL or the SafePal wallets, where you kind of just scan the QR codes and that's how you send and sweep.
Yeah, I have a Kobo Vault, which I think is similar to that. It's basically a hardware wallet with a camera and a screen, right?
Yeah. I guess my question is just, are those decently safe beginner wallets?
I also have the Kobo. I quite enjoy it. So those types of transactions, again, are known as air-gapped transactions. So you don't actually plug the wallet into anything, as I'm sure you're aware. The keys reside on the device, and you have to effectively construct a transaction on either a phone or a computer, something that is connected, and say, I would like to move this Bitcoin from here to there. And then you get that information over to your wallet via QR code. And your wallet says, okay, do you approve this or not? You approve it on the wallet. And then you have to convey that information back to the internet connected device, again via QR code. So there's a bit of scanning back and forth. It's not like a device like the Ledger or the Trezor where it's directly plugged in and you just hit a button to approve. So a couple extra steps, but the air gapping is nice. I do really enjoy it in terms of the fact that the additional risk of plugging your device in is now gone. At least to a degree. So yeah, I really like them. The cold card also allows you to do it similarly, but this time with an SD card instead. So yeah, I like the Kobo and the cold card. I have not used the LAPAL, but same concept, I would say.
Yeah, I feel like they're maybe a little easier to use than the Ledger, but maybe it's just because I use them more. But how about the Ballet wallet? I mean, I assume that's some kind of like a paper wallet, but it's just on a metal card.
I'm just excited to listen to people talk about this.
Have you guys heard of that one? Or
I would stay away from single key paper wallets or single key anything. The old style single key paper wallets are well and truly obsolete. If you already have one, it's safe, but you really need to know how to sweep it properly. If you don't have one, don't play around with that stuff. The standards today are mnemonic-based, hierarchical, deterministic wallets that don't reuse addresses, that have change addresses built in, and a lot of other resilience and recovery features. So I would stay away from single key paper wallets.
I mean, to be absolutely clear, my strong opinion on this is that no one should be using Ballet wallets.
I kind of thought I might hear something like that, but
there's something to think about here too. Is if you're getting something where the private key, the keys to your money, are created by a trusted third party, and you're trusting that there's no copy of that anywhere, whether it be with the manufacturer or whether it be in transit, somebody took a copy of it. Because if at any point somebody got a copy of a previously created private key, they could potentially sweep your funds out of your control at any point in time. So,
wait, those are pre-generated keys? Okay,
yeah, Ballet.
All right, let's take to. I usually
have some method, I think, of doing it, but I'm not exactly.
No, yeah,
right.
I don't.
Okay,
have one.
whose keys? Whose coins? Not your keys. Not your coins.
They're Bobby Lee's coins.
Yeah, I would avoid anything like that where somebody else creates keys for you. The security behind, whether it's a device you're talking about, like the air gap ones, or whether it be Trezor or Ledger or Coldcard or Kobo or EliPal, you're generating the keys yourself. So nobody has ever seen the keys to those coins outside of you and that device. As soon as you introduce any sort of a third party in that action, there's way more risk involved. So I would just steer clear.
I like how you went from the ultimate in air-gapped security to pre-generated single key wallets. It's like, okay, I have two possible options here. I can either use the re-entry parachutes, or I can just jump out and hold this pillowcase above my head. What do you think?
Sure. I hear you. I don't have the ballet. Like I said, I was just curious in like how it works and stuff, but I think you answered that.
No, it was a great question. You gave us the whole range to comment on. Thank you.
And to be in his defense, like Bobby Lee is doing like borderline, it's a scam. Like the way they word it on their website is it's intended to mislead people into thinking it's not pre-generated, that it's leading edge, that it's like industry leading, the most secure way you can get, store your Bitcoin. So don't worry about that, Jesse. It's really, it's something that it pisses me off that they don't get more shit for it in the space.
Yeah. I don't know if I get another question or not.
I think what we'll do is, if it's a good, you can ask a question, but the group has to decide if it's a good question and if we'll allow it for second questions.
Okay. Well, it might be quick. Like, I'm basically wondering if I had like two ledgers, like if I wanted to back up, like if I had the private keys from one ledger and then wanted to back it up with another, or if it was from a ledger to a Trezor, how would that work? Like, I suppose I could plug in the private keys. Let's just say I'm going from a ledger to a Trezor and I plug in the private keys. I could bring my ledger wallet to the Trezor, I think. But then what would happen to the old wallet?
You can copy a mnemonic phrase and recover it, as they say, or restore it. And you can effectively import the same mnemonic phrase on multiple wallets, and they can both use it simultaneously, independently, one after the other, one before the other. It doesn't really matter. They will.
So you're saying you would have two wallets, but then you might want to go back and wipe the old one.
Yeah, essentially that's exactly it. If you could take the mnemonic phrase. Now there is one catch though. A mnemonic phrase generates a tree of keys, and that tree has billions of branches. Most wallets use the same branches for the same purposes. So they'll use the same branches for legacy addresses, the same branches for let's say 3 addresses or native SegWit addresses, and therefore they'll find the funds on the correct branches. But some wallets don't. And when they don't follow the standard, then they'll recover the mnemonic phrase and they'll go looking on the wrong branch, or simply a different branch from the one you used in the old wallet, and they'll find nothing there. Your money's still on the tree, it's just on a different branch that you're not looking at. So just keep that in mind. The branches, each branch is called a derivation path, and there's a website that tells you what derivation paths are used by which wallets. It's called walletsrecovery.org.
Is that the BIP 39 and the 32, or is that different?
BIP 39 defines the mnemonic phrase. BIP 32 defines the structure of the tree. BIP 43 provides for different models for how to find or where to put the branches, which branches to use. BIP 44 is one type of branch. BIP 84 is another type of branch. BIP 49 is another type of branch. So there's a lot of standards, and different wallets. Most wallets nowadays, like 75%, use the same branches. But the reason I'm saying this is, if you recover a mnemonic phrase from one wallet to another wallet and you suddenly see zero balance, do not panic. Your money's still on the tree. It's just on the branch you're not looking at that moment.
Okay.
This actually happened to me, and I called Matt Odell in a panic, and he had to calm me down. I don't think I've recovered that Bitcoin yet, but it is still there, so that's good.
Cool.
Matt, I just go ahead, Joseph.
Oh, I was just gonna thank you guys so much for like being so helpful, and it's an honor to be able to get on here and ask you guys questions. But yeah,
Matt, I just came in to tell you that you forgot your caps on when you wrote your name.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jesse. And thanks, NVK, for interrupting.
That's my bad.
I don't think I'm quite ready for the cold card yet, but maybe I'll keep.
No,
keep
Jesse,
studying.
Jesse, you had great questions. Okay, I'm less technical than you are. Just from hearing your questions, get a cold card, do it. You'll feel. I've never felt like more of a Bitcoiner than when I set up my cold card. Maybe when I started running my own node, but other than that, like it's.
Oh yeah,
it's
and
worth
it's
it.
got great documentation. Absolutely.
Listen,
Just because it looks gnarly
as long
doesn't mean it's hard to use.
as long as you use a hardware wallet, I'm happy. Seriously, like it doesn't matter. Just use a hardware wallet for now.
Well, I'm learning a lot from you guys just listening like every day while I work. So I'm working on it. I'm studying and I'm trying to get more secure. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the great questions.
Thanks, Jesse. All right, NVK, since you interrupted us, do me a favor and pick someone in the audience who has their hand raised and ask them to join us on stage and ask a question.
All right.
One of the hand uppers.
Yeah, one of the hand uppers. Let's see here. I'll just go for the first one. Jim Artris.
Jim, come on down. I should get some sound effects. That might be fun. Are there sound effects online?
Yeah, like a fart machine.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
That was supposed to be Chewbacca. Didn't work.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you. Jim. Go for it.
Yeah, I have a question for Andropoulos. When earlier you were talking about the paper bags with the 12 words. If you download, let's say you have a wallet. Let's say take any wallet, like Exodus wallet, and you write down your 12 words and you keep them in a very safe place, and you delete the app off your phone. You still have a paper bag, or is the ledger, the treasure, still one step beyond that, or have you now achieved the security of a ledger and a treasure by deleting the app off your phone?
It's still a paper bag. Unfortunately, here's the thing. There is a chance that you get everything right, and when you generated the mnemonic phrase on your smartphone on an internet-connected device, when it was hot, it wasn't compromised at that time. But you have no way of knowing that. And even those among us who have been doing information security for 20 plus years, if you ask me, do I trust my Android device or do I trust my iOS device? My answer is no. I assume that my devices are compromised. I assume that as the default state always. My laptop, I assume that it's running a keylogger, someone's taking photos with a camera. I assume my Android phone is compromised because that I'm safer if I make that assumption. And so if you start with a hot wallet, you delete the app, but the keys were in memory at some point when you generated it. Also, that smartphone wallet that you used to generate the mnemonic phrase, what if it wasn't a real wallet? What if it was an app that someone has snuck onto the App Store that generates a predetermined sequence of mnemonic phrases? And this has happened before, right? So people will sneak Trojan apps onto the App Store. You download it, you generate a mnemonic phrase. They already know which ones it's going to generate. They'll wait until you move enough money on there to make it worth their time, and then poof, it's gone. The thing about hardware wallets that's really great is it's not that they just store the keys for you. They also generate them. And most of these hardware wallets use an actual randomness source that is implemented in hardware. So that is a very secure way of generating randomness. And so you will get very, very good quality randomness that will produce a unique mnemonic phrase. And doing so on the devices is the best way. In fact, I particularly like devices that you can plug into a charger or battery to generate the mnemonic phrase. So it's not even connected to a computer when it's generating the keys. Devices like the cold card.
Have you played around with BIP85 yet?
I assume that was a question for Andreas.
Yeah. Now you can actually generate multiple like seeds with a master seed.
That's
to load into phone wallet.
That's the entropy from BIP32, or that's for generating additional entropy, right?
Yeah, it's deterministic.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool because all the noobs can sort of generate a master seed and then load those into phones.
Does a ledger do that?
I don't think it does, but I mean that's still a pretty advanced and experimental feature. But you can, any hardware wallet will generate a mnemonic phrase for you, and it's a much safer way of going about it, Jim. I would strongly recommend making the minimal investment required to do that. Once you reach an amount of Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies where it's like a no-brainer for you, whatever that amount is.
All right. Okay. How about the Samurai wallet on an Android phone? Is that any better?
I think among the paper bags, it's a really nice paper bag. You know, it's a hot wallet. It's a lovely hot wallet. It's one of the nicest. It's very sophisticated with privacy, but it's still a hot wallet. It doesn't change its nature.
I see. Okay. Oh, thank you much. I appreciate your help. So,
you got it, Jim.
Yeah, interesting. Gonna change course here a little bit. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. We appreciate it. So I know we're doing Q&A here, but I like to entertain a little bit when I can. And so I just want to make everyone aware that there's a very large green candle happening right now, up to about $49,205. And I was just playing around with this online soundboard with all these sound effects. And I found one that I think that everyone on stage will really appreciate. So I'm going to play this sound, and then I would like Matt ODELL to explain why I played this sound.
It's over 9,000.
One more time.
It's over 9,000.
I mean, I think you'd be better to explain it, but Bitcoiners got a little bit obsessed with this meme how many times did we cross 9,000? Was it like
9,000 times?
I think it was at least a dozen. At least a dozen.
My new obsession is the Screaming Cowboy song. Like, that is the song of my people.
I love that song. We're gonna do it. We're gonna sing it.
It's I don't know if we can sing it. I mean, I'll play it. If you'll sing along, I'll cue it up for after the next question. How about that?
Let's do that.
I'll take the bass.
How to empty a room in 10 seconds.
All right, Jim. Thank you so much. Stefan, please choose someone from the audience, and I'm going to move Jim back down. Who do you got first, Stefan?
Okay, let's get. Looks like Omar here is at the top of the list. I presume it's in order when you put it up. So Omar, let's see.
It's not. So for the next one, choose someone at random because it keeps.
Okay, gotcha. Hey, everyone. Hey, Omar. Let's hear your question.
Sure.
Oh, sorry. What's the thing, Brekkie, you were saying? An interesting thing about yourself.
Sure.
Interesting thing about myself. I guess I'm a designer, and I love following Bitcoin. And early on, it was like so confusing to see everything. So I'm just thinking about ways like how can this be designed better for everyone to use.
It's awesome, man. That's great.
Sure.
Yeah, we need you. What's your Bitcoin? Sorry, go on.
Sure. So my question is, are there any best practices or strategies on the best time to buy Bitcoin, particularly if I want to repeatedly increment it over time?
So I guess, look, you ask different Bitcoiners, you get different answers on this, but I think for most of us, we're probably in favor of just set up a dollar cost averaging or stacking sats, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, depending on who you look at and who you're following, you might see some people who are trying to time the tops and the bottoms. But I think you can save yourself a lot of hassle by just setting up an auto buying plan. But I can understand, right? It's like one of those things where our human psychology is to try to, like when everyone else is going crazy for it, then we're also going crazy for it. And it's almost counterintuitive. So the easy way to kind of take that out of the picture is to just think, okay, I'm going to be prudent. Here's my budget. This is what I'm ready to save in Bitcoin every week or every month or whenever you want to do it, and just do it that way, because otherwise you're just gonna kind of psych yourself out. And I'll give you an example. Even American Hodl, like another famous character from the Bitcoin Twitter scene, he ran the numbers on because he was trying to do this idea of smash buy, right? Trying to buy the dip. And he ran the numbers. He found it. If he had just simply done dollar cost averaging, he would have done better in terms of how many sats he would have, accumulated. So I guess that's one little factoid you can kind of take away with that. But I'll open it up now for anyone else.
I would also say, I would consider, like, do you want to have Bitcoin itself? So if you're trying to time the bottoms and the tops, then you're still kind of thinking of it in dollar terms, and I want to have more dollars. But myself included, and I'd say a lot of the people on stage just want to have Bitcoin. That is, it's almost like their money of choice.
We're losing you there. Can you repeat that?
I'm sorry.
Can you repeat that last part? We lost it.
Yeah, so I was saying that I currently live on Bitcoin, and I just try to save my Bitcoin. And so I look at it as I want to accumulate as much Bitcoin as I can comfortably while covering my expenses. So, trying to time it is a tough game and often a losing game. And so if you want Bitcoin, then just gradually accumulating and dollar cost averaging is a non-emotional way to tackle it.
I'd just like to disagree with one thing that was said, which is that there is no best time to buy Bitcoin and we can't get Bitcoiners to agree. I think we can. I think the best time to buy Bitcoin is January 4th, 2009. And it's less good every day thereafter, but that was definitely the best time.
Yeah, so if at all possible, get a time machine and go back in time and buy Bitcoin then. But I mean, there's one other thing I like to tell people, and it's that you need to not only just buy Bitcoin, but build your conviction also. Like, understand why you're doing it, because you buy, even if you think it's a good time and you buy and like, okay, I think the price is good, whatever, I'm gonna build a position and then I'll start dollar cost averaging. If there's a price drop the next day, which is always possible, you don't want to panic sell necessarily. And if you're not a day trading or swing trading or any of these things, you might end up shooting yourself in the foot. So, how do I say this? A lot of people say that, like, your propensity to store value in the Bitcoin protocol increases the more you understand Bitcoin. And I think that's really true. And I also just want to echo, I forget who was saying it, but like, what I do is I convert a part of my paycheck every single, I buy Bitcoin every day, but I convert a percentage of my income to Bitcoin. To me, that is my savings account. I know I trust that more than I trust dollars or anything else. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
No follow-up question? Everyone who's come up on stage had at least 2 questions, Omar. Don't let us down. You don't have to have one. It's all right.
No, I don't. But thank you, guys.
Definitely. Thank you so much. All right. I'm going to choose someone now because I haven't chosen someone in a while. Let's see. Who do we got? Who's the lucky person who's going to come on stage and ask a question?
One of the up-and-armers.
We still haven't settled on a name. Ghazale. Please tell me I pronounced that right. I probably didn't. Welcome to the stage.
Hi, you did not. It's Gazala, but that was pretty close.
Gazala. It was either the front or the back. Okay, got it. Something interesting and your Bitcoin question.
Something interesting. Okay, what to pick? I am planning to learn how to play the auto harp.
That's interesting. Hold on. What's the auto harp? 1 second.
You'll have to look it up. I have one. I grew up playing drums. Like, I love rock music, so this is totally the opposite, but I've acquired one and I'm going to learn how to play it one day.
Hold on one second.
Is that the massive one?
It's not massive.
Sure. For the first time in history, auto harp is currently trending on Google as we all furiously search.
I wish I was the inventor of it. That would have
Oops, sorry. I was trying to play an auto harp for us, but I have another YouTube window open and I can't find it. Never mind. We'll do it later. All right, Bitcoin question time. What do you got?
Awesome. So, hey, thanks for having me on here. I listen to all of you guys pretty frequently, and I'm excited for this. My question, you read about these situations where people have like lost their seed phrases and like lost their Bitcoin forever. Has there ever been like any analysis to see over time how much are people projecting that this could rise to? Like, for example, right now, like a lot of the people, we're all still like early adopters, but as the generations kind of go on and people maybe don't learn how to set up, like how to pass this on to their families or things, transpire, like any thoughts on like how widespread this could be, like, I don't know, 50 years from now? And I don't worry about it impacting the price, right? Like makes it only more scarce, but just curious if there's any insight on that.
Is that counting both accidents or like legit lost seeds?
I think she's talking about legitimately lost keys here, NVK.
I think one of the studies I read estimated it somewhere around 15 to 20% of all Bitcoin circulated so far may be lost. Obviously, it's impossible to know for sure. And there's a couple of interesting questions that come up. One is, what happens if more and more gets lost? Well, eventually, let's say we only had one Bitcoin left. As long as we can divide it into even smaller units, smaller than a Satoshi, then it doesn't really matter. Whatever the world economy is, you divide that by one Bitcoin and all of its subunits, and you can still continue doing the same thing. It's just more scarce. The other interesting thing is what happens if quantum computing gets to the point where it can reverse hashes or public keys. In that case, a lot of the Bitcoin whose keys are lost could get resurrected by a quantum computer that basically sweeps up. So the first to have a powerful enough quantum computer could start sweeping up all of the old, abandoned, or lost Bitcoin. Presuming that in the meantime, Bitcoin has moved to a quantum resistant algorithm for digital signatures, and the only money that hasn't moved is the money that can't be moved, and that gets swept up.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. And I might have found some auto harp.
Was that too sci-fi as an answer? I don't know. Maybe.
No, that was awesome.
All right, that's enough Dolly Parton and auto harp. Anyway.
I definitely won't be singing along, by the way.
Oh, wait.
By the way, just so everybody knows, new all-time high.
You have me to thank for that. Hey, thanks for having me on here.
It was all the auto harp. Thank you very much.
I just want to tell everyone I grew up in Athens.
Took me a second.
I've been doing that series of tweets for 3 months now and never gets old.
All right. Oh, shoot. I forgot. One more time. How do we say your name? Gazala. All right. Thank you, Gazala. We're going to bring someone else up. Lucas, choose someone for us.
Okay, let's do it.
Also, I'm supposed to find the cowboy song. Is that true? Bitcoin
Toby.
Cowboys.
Are you getting up here?
In the meantime.
That's no, can you hear me?
All right, that's enough of that.
Something interesting about you, Toby.
Yes. So, what is interesting? I started 2017 getting into Bitcoin. I'm originally from Germany and I live in the US now. And I'm 57 and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up.
I love that. Toby, just an FYI, we're working on getting a Bitcoin auf Deutsch room going. So if you, and for anyone else interested, We have a room going in Portuguese that Lucas is involved in, and hopefully NVK will get involved in. We have a room in Spanish on Thursdays as well that Camilla is running along with Javier from Venezuela. I don't know if he is here, although I see Camilla in the audience. So if you're interested in those rooms or any of these sort of rooms, these beginner Bitcoin Q&As, feel free to join Cafe Bitcoin. You can do so just by touching the Cafe Bitcoin little icon at the top left, and you can join the club and you'll get notified anytime we are doing these rooms.
Great. I think I've been in one already, but I don't know if I get all the notifications. I will do so. I have another question about the Ledger Nano S wallet. When I started in 2017, I don't know if you guys remember, there was, when we were in the run-up in December, there was a shortage at Ledger, and it took a while before you could actually get your wallet, your hardware device. And I ordered it, and I think the original, Ledger is located in Paris, France, or something like that. So I ordered it, but I parallel ordered another device, which was like triple the price. I don't even know if it was eBay or Amazon. And I got this device earlier, and but then I got suspicious because it was like a handwritten envelope, and there was an address from Singapore on it. My question is there any way that somebody could compromise these devices? I haven't used this Ledger, so that would be my question.
Yes.
Yeah.
There have been. Sorry, someone else want to go?
No, go ahead.
I mean, really, you are the expert at this, NVK. All I will say is there have been vulnerabilities where a device that someone has possession of can be compromised in a variety of ways. Usually those vulnerabilities apply to devices that already have keys on. The kind of compromise you're looking at, which is really a supply chain attack, would involve somehow compromising the hardware on it so as to either create a way to leak keys through a side channel, or to compromise the random number generator to pre-generate keys or something like that. Very difficult to do. No such attacks. I haven't heard of any attack like that being successful. And the device itself is fairly robustly blocked in epoxy, and it's very difficult to access. Perhaps even just installing firmware would remove any of those doubts. But again, it depends on, is it really worth for the cost of $100 device to take that kind of risk?
No, it's not. So I probably won't use it then and discard it.
So
that was NVK, yeah. Would you add something? I'm curious.
So the best practice for this kind of stuff is the investment on these devices is pretty small compared to normally what you're trying to put in them. So if they leave your possession, or if they come through a third party, I'd say they're no good.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, I guess just one point I would add there as well is from now, I don't know, we don't have to agree with this, but I think Ledger's kind of view, and maybe this is how they scaled in some ways, that their view is more like they kind of relied more on the whole reseller model, and their kind of defense is almost that, see, you'll run a check on it, that your Ledger Live runs a check to check that it's that it's legit. Now, personally, if I was going to use a Ledger, I would order it direct from Ledger rather than doing the whole reseller thing. But I guess that's their answer. Now, whether you kind of agree with that risk and whether you think that's a worthwhile risk, I don't think so. I would prefer to order direct and at least reduce some of that risk, if you will.
I did so. I ordered directly from Ledger, and all my Bitcoins are on there. But thank you so much.
You can always use it for testing purposes to play around with things. You can use it on a test net instead of real Bitcoin. You can use it to experiment or practice recoveries and things like that of non-real seeds, like mnemonic phrases that you don't actually use for money. You could use it for training. You could donate it to a local meetup that wants to do demos. knowing that it may be a compromised device, but just use it to demonstrate the user interface and mnemonic generation, things like that.
Good idea. Thank you.
That's a great point. All right, Toby, thank you so much. I'm going to play a little 40-second interstitial while Andreas picks the next person.
Bitcoin, please go to moon. Stop going sideways now. Don't ever say we going down to 1K, but Mr. Novokrat say we have
Derek Roll set up.
Hey guys.
Wait, not yet, Derek. Song's almost done. And I'm having too much fun.
Let us go to moon.
Thank you for indulging me. Derek.
I'm a sucker too.
Hi. So I have a Bitcoin IRA with bitcoinira.com, and they recently started this lending program where you could earn 2% on lending out your Bitcoin through Genesis Trading. And the fees each month are kind of expensive, in the hundreds of dollars just to sort of maintain the account. So I'm wondering if it's like safe to lend my Bitcoin through their lending platform, and if it's worth it, because I'm a little paranoid, like if there's some liquidity crisis and my Bitcoin, they have to sell it off for some reason. So just wondering what your opinion is on that.
I think you did great analysis right there. You've already answered your own question. It's a small return and it's a big risk. So the problem with all of these things is that you're adding counterparty risk to an asset that is designed to remove counterparty risk. And doing so when it already gains through disinflation quite comfortably every now and then, and certainly compounding over the long term, in order to gain 2%, 3%, 6% even.
Yeah.
I would never consider that a worthy risk, unless I did it with a very small amount that I want to really just play a high risk game with. But then, if I'm doing that, I might even consider having a custodial altcoin to play around with, and then put my earnings into Bitcoin.
Yeah, all of it's in Bitcoin. And I was thinking of maybe doing a small percentage of Bitcoin just to cover the monthly fee, but I don't even know if that's worth the risk. I might as well just leave it.
So decide if it's worth to you the risk of losing 100% of your original investment in order to gain 6% a year on that original investment.
Yeah, it's not even 6%. I think it's 2 or 3%. So probably not.
And just you have additional privacy risk, because I presume whichever service you're using is going to KYC you and take your identifying information. So that you have to keep that in mind as well.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Alrighty. Thank you, Derek. BTC Sessions. Choose the next person for us.
All right. Let's take a look.
By the way, panelists, that question about yield and return and lending out is the #1 most commonly asked question across all of Clubhouse and most of my private Q&As. It's amazing how often it comes up. Is everybody else experiencing that?
100%. Although
I do get that a lot as well.
It definitely comes down to what you were talking about earlier, though, about this sort of fiat mindset of thinking in the old way. So maybe that'll change over time.
It's the risk. I do.
Go ahead, Matt.
Because of DeFi too.
Yeah, it's fascinating for people to want to make a few percent on an asset that moves 10% in 5 minutes. You're risking everything for a tiny little. It's pretty scary.
Ironically, for DeFi, it makes sense because it is inflationary.
Welcome, Beth. Something interesting about yourself in a Bitcoin question.
Lots of interesting things, but I used to ride vintage motorcycles, and I was in a National Geico commercial for motorcycles. Yeah. And there was a bear in it, too.
Now I'm going to have to look that up.
Google Geico Amazing Bear. Found it. So I'm very happy to find a beginner Bitcoin because I keep getting in these advanced ones, and I feel like I have simple questions. But I did invest last night, and I'm pretty excited about it. But I'm wondering, like, I put it on a recurring, like, weekly thing to invest, but I kind of want to invest more. And I'm wondering, I mean, I know there's been a million questions about wallets too, and at what point do I need to put it into a cold wallet? Because I'm guessing a hot wallet is just like one of the apps that I use. Like if I were to use Coinbase or Swan, that's like a hot wallet.
There's a slight...
So there's a few. Sorry, there's a few kind of levels of it. So if you're on the exchange, something like Coinbase, and you've literally just bought Bitcoin, that would be a custodial solution where they have control over your money. The next step from that would be a non-custodial hot wallet. So a hot wallet would be like an app that you download on your phone where you actually generate keys to that wallet, which is like a 12 to 24 word phrase that you write down and back up. And that means that you actually have custodial control over your own money. Nobody can stop you from sending or receiving transactions. So it's fully in your control, but it's called hot because it's on a device which is connected to the internet, which comes with a degree of risk. So you wouldn't want to have more money on a hot wallet than you'd be comfortable carrying around as cash in your pocket. And then a step beyond that would be a hardware wallet or a cold wallet. And the keys to your money in that case are actually segregated from anything connected to the internet. They sit on a dedicated device that you would purchase and would keep somewhere safe. So basically 3 degrees there. You've got custodial, you've got a hot wallet, and you've got a cold wallet. So that's kind of the hierarchy.
Okay.
I'm going to add in one other thing, and disclaimer, I work for Swan, but I do like to make this difference in that with Swan, actually, when you buy Bitcoin, it's in your name. So while it is custodial, if there were ever like legal issues, Swan has no claim to that Bitcoin. We can't do anything with it. It is yours. And Beth, if you're interested in kind of reading up on wallets, we actually have a great article written just for this purpose to kind of guide people through, what wallets are, what the different types are, how, when, and why we think you should use them. It's just swanbitcoin.com/wallets. And I'd urge you to check it out.
Okay. Yeah, I did sign up with Swan because it did make it easy to just connect to my bank account compared to some of the other apps. But then I was talking to my boss today, and he's like, yeah, I use Coinbase and it works with my bank. And so I was confused why I couldn't do it, but that could be user error. I forgot what I was going to say now.
No worries.
I do have a question for you, Brekkie, about Swan. Why is there not an app?
So we're actually working on an app. So it will be coming, I think, probably within the next few months. So it's coming, but the website's optimized for mobile. It runs great on mobile. I use it all the time on mobile. It just wasn't our focus when we first got started.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if it was like a security issue of these apps just being on phones and running over Wi-Fi. If I should be running something like, I don't even know if I should, like IP vanish or things like that to be secure.
Maybe someone else can speak to this, but I think if you're using a service where you have to do KYC and they know who you are anyway, I think that's less of an issue in terms of like hiding your IP address or something like that.
KYC stands for Know Your Customers, regulations banks have to do to identify you.
Oh,
yeah, keep it simple.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't really need to do anything additional there. For where you are in your journey, you're kind of at the first step of this staircase. As you move up to the next steps, it's about gaining more control. And the very next step is to take some of your funds, maybe, and consider having self-custody by generating your own keys using a self-custody wallet, a non-custodial wallet on your smartphone. That would be the next step. Maybe the third step is a dedicated device. But as you grow your skills in this area, you can take a small amount at first to practice and put it on a wallet where you control the keys, back it up, wipe it, recover it again from the key phrase, and keep doing little tests like that so you can build the skills, right? There's no wrong way of doing this. It's just a matter of as you develop your skills, you move gradually up into more and more control, which brings more and more responsibility.
Okay. I'll read up on that, what you said, Brekkie, about it's on your site about the wallets. And then my other question was about if I want to transfer a larger amount, it mentions you can wire money.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you're looking to deposit a larger amount than is possible with ACH, you can always do wires. You can reach out to me, or you can just go to swanbitcoin.com/support for that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Andreas, I really like that you mentioned not necessarily doing everything at once. I think a lot of people come into the space and they're like, okay, they hear that they need to get their Bitcoin off an exchange, and they say, all right, I'm just going to do it all at once. And then they end up, screwing themselves. And I think this is something that I tell people that, I'm all in favor of self-custody when the time is right. But if it's safer in custody for the meantime, while you're learning what you're doing, then that's better. Play with a little bit of Bitcoin that you wouldn't mind losing, set up hardware wallets like Andreas was saying. You can always send more Bitcoin later. And even another thing that I feel like not enough people mention is like send a scout transaction. So like, let's say you are offloading a lot of Bitcoin from Coinbase or another exchange, Swan, wherever, if you've never sent to that address before, send a little bit first. If you're sending $10,000 worth of Bitcoin, send $100 first or $20 first. Make sure it gets there. Make sure that, there wasn't a man in the middle attack and you copy and pasted the wrong address. Just always better to be more careful than less careful.
Yeah, I'm not really looking to do like transactions or I just want a better savings account than what I have right now,
Oh, sure. When I say transactions, I just mean a send, like, if you're sending it to yourself, let's say.
Oh, if I'm sending it to the wallet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. When they say withdraw from an exchange, what you're doing is effectively a Bitcoin transaction that's actually recorded on the Bitcoin blockchain that is initiated by the exchange and whose destination is an address that you control from your own wallet.
Yeah. Okay. I did understand that part of it, kind of like an IP address.
Yes, it's kind of like that. Yes.
Okay. And then I also heard there should be more than one type of like wallets as well. Like people, I guess last night, I can't remember which night it was. I feel like it's every night I'm here listening, but
I think I was there.
Putting it on metal.
Yeah. So think about it this way. First step, you get the coins, you get the Bitcoin exposure, right? Second step, set up a phone wallet where you feed in the seed, and then you get to take a little bit out, play around, send around, get used to it, right? And then if you feel like this is something you're going to be doing, right, like investing more and more, then you look into getting a hardware wallet. And when you do have a hardware wallet and real money in this, then you definitely want, I highly recommend getting a piece of metal, any of the metal solutions for seed backup, because most people screw themselves out of their coins. And one way they screw themselves out of their coins is either losing or damaging the seed backup, right? The 24 words. And there's all these little solutions that will let you write down those 24 words in metal, so that, if you have a house fire, it doesn't burn. So you haven't lost your money.
I see. And then metal, obviously, in a safe or somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. Nobody can see that. If anybody can see the seed, they can take it.
Yeah. And one other point I would add as well, and I think some of the other guys were saying this as well, but let me just reiterate this, is you can give yourself additional confidence by proving it to yourself that you can recover those coins. So in that example, let's say step one is you're just buying some Bitcoin. Step two, you have a phone wallet, whether that is Blue Wallet or Samurai Wallet or one of those wallets. And let's say you withdraw, $20 or some small amount in there, and you've got your 12-word backup. Now, what you could do is even practice deleting and then recovering that wallet. So you could wipe it and then go back into that wallet and say, hey, I want to recover now. And then you would enter in the 12 words for that, for that $20 or whatever. And then you can kind of prove it to yourself, oh, hey, with these 12 words or 24 words, I can recover the coins. And then that kind of gives you a bit more confidence with this process that if something were to go wrong, you can recover with your 12 or 24 word seed. Make sense?
Yeah.
That's a little ritual that I do with every new wallet. So I do not consider a wallet ready for use until I have sent money to it, deleted everything, wiped everything, and recovered from my primary backup. So I test the entire process. For example, if I've recorded my 12 words, let's say, on a steel plate, I will wipe the wallet and recover from that steel plate specifically. I need to know that I can read it off the steel plate. I need to know that I'm not confused about what the words are and put them in. And then I get back my money and I'm like, yes, now I'm confident. I can go from scratch and build up to getting my money back. Now I can send more.
Check out bitcoinsecurity.guide. There is like a step-by-step there, and I think I link at the end to ODELL's article on doing this process. At least you get like a sense of like a picture of one of these devices, so you understand what we're talking about.
Okay, and you said Bitcoin security guide.
Yeah.
Bitcoinsecurity.guide is the website.
Guide. Okay.
Wait, so NVK, Rodolfo, are you telling me that little piece of paper that comes with the cold card that I wrote my seed phrase on with water-soluble ink is not a good long-term solution?
Yes. That's like the way I like to look at the paper backup that come with the wallets is like your working backup, right? So you write the stuff down. And I highly recommend when you are putting away your metal backup, also put in the paper backup and put that in one of those non-see-through envelopes. Like the ones you have normally at home to send checks or something. Yeah. So maybe put the stuff in one of those after you're done checking the backups and everything. Put into one of those, seal it, and then maybe make a little signature on the seal or something. So you know that nobody saw it, right? And that's what you'd normally put in the safe.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and if all of this seems overwhelming, just remember, step one is enough for now. This is the whole journey, and you don't have to go the whole way now. You can just build confidence. And there's no wrong way of you're not doing Bitcoin the right way or doing it enough or any of that.
Okay, will do. I'm after listening for a couple weeks now. I'm pretty excited about it. So I do want to do more, and so it's
a fun journey.
Yeah, I don't watch TV, so I figure this is my learning experience.
Well, if you have a computer, I would recommend checking out Andreas's videos on YouTube. The beginner Bitcoin series he has is pretty good too. I don't consider that TV. I consider that educational material.
Right. As long as I'm learning, I wrote that down too. And some of these, but sometimes I feel like if it's a full book, it's like I'm not going to have time to get through it. So YouTube would definitely be helpful.
If you or anyone else is interested, also you can also go to bitcointv.network. We've got to update it, but for right now, there's some really great stuff there. It's basically a loop of some curated content. A lot of the best Bitcoin talks that are out there.
Great, I'll check it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Hey guys, I
yeah,
just wanted to say that I've got to duck out, but thank you so much for having me. You guys are all legends, and it's humbling to share a stage with you. So have a great night, guys.
Thanks, Benny.
See you, man. Follow you, Ben. Bye-bye, guys.
So I think let's try to go at least another maybe 30 minutes or so. And if anybody else wants to stay up here and keep answering questions, we can keep it going. We always set out to do these for about an hour, and then we end up going for even way longer. All right, let's bring someone else up. Who do we got? Alonzo, come on up. Alonzo, are you with us? Nope. All right. Oh, there he is.
Hey guys, thanks for bringing me up here. Something interesting, real quick. I'd like to create a 3D kind of printing sewing machine that you could put like hemp fibers into and like make a shirt. I think that would be interesting. But that's, on a whole different note. My quick question that I have kind of has to do with
Ooh, we're losing you, Alonzo. You still there? Alonzo, are you there?
That was a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
It's like, my question has to do with silence.
hedge funds and ETFs, but
Alonzo, we missed the entirety of your question. Could you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries.
This a little bit better?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So my question was basically, we hear about all the hedge funds and, the big institutions coming in and the ETFs and all the big, players that are kind of getting into the crypto sphere. But I was just wondering if we had companies working on solutions for those that are unbanked in the world, and how we're going to kind of, move into a space to where, this kind of technology can really start to benefit those that were, us guys who are, kind of on the forefront of it already, but still you got those guys that are so far behind.
Sure. So I think a couple of things there. We've got there's a lot of wallets that are sort of targeted in more developing areas of the world, and you've also got some of those peer-to-peer exchanges and peer-to-peer platforms. So things like Paxful is probably one good example where people can do peer-to-peer trading, and you've got people who are doing who are the traders on those kinds of platforms like Paxful and local Bitcoins and so on. So that's probably where I would say it's starting. But I'm sure the other guys, I'm sure Andreas and the others have comments as well.
Well, one thing I like to point out is that, with Bitcoin, sorry, Alonzo, I'm just going to mute you. You got a little wind sound there. So unmute yourself if you want to jump back in.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. But a lot of people have this misconception about Bitcoin that, people who got in early, are benefiting far more than people who got in quote unquote late. And with Bitcoin, there is no late. Bitcoin is a radical new financial system. It's going to underpin an entirely new world. So like, let's say you're born 100 years from now and you're born without a pot to piss in, nothing. If you're able 100 years from now to work and save in Bitcoin, it still benefits you. You're able to save it in a money that can't be devalued by reckless governments, So while I do agree that like we do need to get out there, we need to spread the word about Bitcoin and get as many of the little guys in on it as possible. I think, at the end of the day, Bitcoin will bring about a better, more fair world, in my opinion, regardless, even if, it was just hedge funds getting in on it, which I don't think is the case.
There's an interesting tension right now between the long-term survivability of this currency and its ability to help the underbanked and unbanked, and the short-term goals of some of the people who are jumping on at the moment. And I think that tension is really noticeable when you see how differently people will talk about Bitcoin. And I think there's a tendency for everyone to project their own expectations and belief systems onto Bitcoin and try to see it from a different perspective. But one of the difficult things that occurs within an environment like this is that there are ways to make Bitcoin cheap and fast, but those ways make it much less resilient and much less resistant to censorship and attacks against critical pieces of the infrastructure because it's not as decentralized, et cetera, et cetera. So we're seeing a lot of noise, especially from other competing coins and chains, where they say you can't serve the unbanked unless you have zero fees. And but the problem is that in order to have zero fees, they've created systems that are not decentralized. And that means that they can serve the unbanked and underbanked now with zero fees. But if there's an economic crisis or political crisis in a country, then that country is going to find it very easy to shut down the cheap and fast system, and very difficult to shut down or stop or interrupt Bitcoin. So it's not just about can we do things cheaply, but can we do things cheaply without removing the properties that are absolutely necessary when the going gets tough. And that's, I think, one of the areas here, because obviously the institutions that are getting into this, if they have to pay $20, $30 per transaction to move a few $1 million, that's cheap, no problem. But at that level, you can't serve people who earn $5 a day. And so one of the answers to this is to build a second layer network that gives you lower cost transactions that are faster without sacrificing the security and decentralization principles. And that's a harder way to do it. It's a more difficult, more complex system, and it takes longer, but it's the right way to do it because it maintains the resilience. So I think you're going to see a lot of that coming to surface in the discussions that happen around Bitcoin and competing systems.
Hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate the input. You know, and listening to what you're saying, to give you even a clearer idea, you know, I'm really thinking about more use case scenarios where, like you say, you have someone in a village who has a craft, or you have craftspersons who have crafts where they can have their, you know, country's, you know, currency and be able to exchange it and, you know, or have us send them, you know, money in a foreign country for their goods to get to us, you know, use cases like that for crypto for those unbanked. So that's kind of what I was speaking on.
Yeah, I can speak from experience because since 2013, I've hired people from around the world to help me with my business, which is an education business in Bitcoin, and for book publishing and things like that, and making videos. And so at any point in time, I have contractors in countries that are very difficult to reach with traditional finance. So for example, at the moment, I have someone from Venezuela who helps me with translations of some of my work, things like video subtitles and stuff like that, into Spanish. Well, the only way I can pay this person is in Bitcoin. And the only reason they have a job and they have an income in Venezuela, which is supporting an extended family at the moment, is because of Bitcoin, because I can send it and they can receive it, and the Venezuelan government can't stop them or me. So this is happening right now. And it costs a slightly higher fee to get a transaction through. And sometimes we have to be patient and say, okay, let's wait a couple of days until the network's a bit more quiet, or find an opportunity to squeeze in a moment where it's a lower fee. But in terms of serving unbanked populations in countries where they have currency crisis, in countries where they have political crisis. That is happening every single day. And there's plenty of people here on Clubhouse, actually, who are living that reality right now with Bitcoin.
Hey, thanks. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alonzo. We're going to send you back down. I'm going to bring up Brett Morrison, who's a friend of mine, and I think he has a question about Lightning that ties into what we were just talking about. Also, I want to do a quick shout out. I noticed that the Bitcoin mom is in the audience, and her son Jack is a rock star and working on something to address kind of what was just being discussed. I don't know if she's in a position to talk about it, but you're welcome to come on up if you'd like to. Brett, how's it going?
Hey, Brekkie. Thanks for having me. Hi, Andreas. Really enjoyed your videos over the years. Regarding second layer payments, I'm thinking specifically with Lightning. You know, we saw a large attempt for adoption with Bitcoin as a first layer payment in 2013, 14. We saw merchants kind of a big push to get merchants adopting it as Bitcoin as a method of payment. And then, of course, that has kind of died out, and Bitcoin really is establishing itself as a store of value. So, method of payment, I don't want it to be kind of forgotten. And I think we'd be surprised to know how few people know about the Lightning Network. It's not even that. We know it as Bitcoiners, but outside of our kind of small group, it's just not well known. So I'm always thinking about how can we get Lightning adoption. I know a part of it is wallets. To me, I use tap to pay everywhere I go. It's so easy. Until we can at least be as good as that, my concern is that using Lightning as a method of payment will always be behind. So what are your thoughts on making it as simple as today's tap to pay and Venmo is to exchange money with low fees?
From a technical perspective, I would say it's already there. I have the newest generation of wallets that really have only been around for 5 or 6 months. Wallets like Breeze, Phoenix, Blue. These wallets make it very easy by hiding a lot of the details of the Lightning Network and allowing you to not have to deal with channel management or any of that stuff. It's basically very, very similar to a scan QR code and pay experience, only fully decentralized, low fees, super fast, super private. I think one of the challenges, and I see that every day because I sell stuff on my store with Lightning every day, and I route hundreds of payments a day across my Lightning nodes. So people are using it. I think one of the challenges and the biggest problem right now for new users is the lack of support from exchanges. I think we would see much greater adoption of Lightning if the first and foremost way of withdrawing from an exchange into your own custody was through a Lightning payment. And if exchanges allowed you to withdraw through Lightning and allowed you to fund a channel on your first withdrawal, even if that had an initial fee, we would see much, much greater adoption. The other big thing I think that is holding us back is not that many wallets yet support splice in, splice out type payments where you can combine an on-chain payment with a channel opening, or an on-chain payment with a channel closure, or various forms of submarine swaps where you convert a Bitcoin payments into a Lightning payment and vice versa. If there was a lot more transparency with that, where you just scan the QR code and your wallet figured out based on the current fees how to pay that, we'd see more adoption. But again, as you said, you didn't want to say wallets, but that's where the rub is. It's all about user interface, user experience, and that stuff takes time. One of the biggest problems is we still have not figured out, I don't think I've seen anybody figure out how to monetize wallet development and maintenance over the long term.
Yeah, I know you use it, and us Bitcoiners use it. I guess I'm thinking more of the audience of just real newbies. Right now they can download Venmo, connect it, they're in. We're not. Yeah, I thank you for answering the question. You brought up some good points with adoption, but I wonder how far off we are from it being as easy as that, where you just buy some Bitcoin, you fund a single wallet with it, and then boom, you walk into a store and can tap to pay. That's what I'm talking about.
I think we're in broad terms. I think could be a decade away from that, maybe longer. But in some places where it's really needed, it's already happening in very, very small pockets here and there. If you want to see that kind of thing broadly deployed, yeah, it's going to be a very long time.
Okay, thanks.
Matt, check out bitcoinjourney.org.
I just saw this tweet. What did you do? What did you put up there? For those who don't know, Matt ODELL is a notorious domain squatter. I don't like using the word squatter. It's a bad name, but he snaps up all the good ones, and NVK just beat him to a really great one. Although we'll see what happens with it.
Wait. Holding is using.
Yeah, exactly.
First of all, not hoarding, and then second of all, NVK has he rivals me. He has a lot. He has a lot himself.
Wait, I said squatting, not hoarding. Okay, don't put fiat words in my mouth over here. All right. Anyway, Brooke, welcome to the stage. Everybody's mom.
Hi. Did you see anybody watching the Bitcoin price? I'm sure none of you was looking at the chart.
Oh, we thought you were going to come up here and talk about Lightning adoption and Costa Rica and Strike. I don't care about the price. No, we do.
No, I'm sorry, Brett. I missed your question, and then Brekkie called me on. Our son, Jack Mallers, has been working at the Lightning Network. Back in 2017, he just basically vowed that he was going to make Lightning work and make it usable, and he was kind of trained in good UI UX. And so over the last 3 years with an open source project, he has developed something called Zap, which was a good Lightning wallet that had a whole suite of tools for browser. These people, he created a Slack chat, and people from all over the world were coming on and just contributing to making Zap work. And one day some guy came on, I don't even know what country he was in. I was like, oh, by the way, I just created Zap for Android because Jack only works on stuff he uses and it was only iOS. And this guy's like, I just created for Android. It was an amazing application. And so that has somehow kind of transformed over time into an app that Jack created last fall called Strike. And Strike is an app where you connect your bank account and you never know you're using Bitcoin or the Lightning Network, but he uses the Lightning Network rails. So you connect your bank account and then it's kind of like Venmo, but with Bitcoin, and there's no fees. And he's announced a few weeks ago Strike Global. So now you can send money overseas for no fees, and it kind of like fulfills all the stuff that we've been kind of the narrative that we all believed that Bitcoin was useful for back in 2013, 2014, 2015, which is it was a cheap and easy decentralized payment network. And once we found out back in 2016, 2017 that it couldn't scale without a second layer, now it's fulfilling that. So yeah, it's a great app. We use it at we own a cannabis company. We have dispensaries. We use it all the time at our stores. And it's really kind of, we discovered that when we were accepting Bitcoin in our stores that most people don't have Bitcoin. And so they don't want it, or if they do, they don't want to part with it. So this kind of solves that problem because you never really know you're using Bitcoin. It's not a taxable event when you use his app. He's got all this magical hocus pocus that happens in the background that you don't have to worry about. So so it's pretty cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks for inviting.
Excited to see where that goes. All right, let's do a few more questions. Who do we got? Who is someone who has had their hand raised for a while? I wish they would fix this app so I would know. All right, 1 second. I can't decide. Sandra. Wait, no, I clicked on the wrong button. Sandra, come on up.
Everyone's all up in arms.
Oh, wait, Sandra, before you go, Brett, you need to tell us one interesting thing about yourself. You got away without doing that.
Wow, one interesting thing.
Only one. Don't go on forever.
That's not Bitcoin related?
That's not Bitcoin related.
I play ice hockey, which not that many people do. I love it.
All right, I'll take it.
In Los Angeles, so yeah, I love it. And in the locker room, I'm always chilling Bitcoin in the locker room because those guys know that I got it in 2013. I'm turning all of them from no coiners into. See, I turned it into Bitcoin. There you go. I'm turning them from no coiners into hockey skating Bitcoiners now.
So for those who are listening, this was a lesson in the universally accepted fact that all roads lead to Bitcoin.
Good one. I do have a friend who just joined named Elon Kunstler. I don't know if he has his hand up, but he's a new coiner. Brekkie, if you can find him, maybe he wants to say something. I don't know.
Well, we've got a lot of people with their hands raised, so let's see where we go. Sandra.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
So I was just looking, Andreas, at your profile to find the resources that you mentioned earlier to learn more about Bitcoin, mastering Bitcoin. I'm a total newbie, and I noticed that one of your books is Mastering Ethereum. And earlier I was actually in this chat or room or whatever you call it, and they were all like super anti-Ethereum and highly recommending to get out of all coin except Bitcoin. So just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, this is a Bitcoin room, so out of respect to the hosts and moderators, I think that's probably a conversation to have in a room that is about Ethereum rather than this one. But what I wrote about is about the technical analysis of how Ethereum works. I'm not an investment advisor. It's a college level textbook for software engineers and programmers, just like Mastering Bitcoin.
I see. Okay, sorry. I thought it was this room that they were talking about that, but maybe it was a different room that.
It could have been a cafe Bitcoin room. So if you're new to Clubhouse, there are these clubs, and then there are rooms that are under the clubs, and the rooms vary. We try in Cafe Bitcoin to keep it relatively objective, even if we do tend towards the Bitcoin maximalist side of things. So yeah.
Okay, well then, more to the point. Is it okay to ask about like questions where people are comparing something to Bitcoin?
Yeah, look, if you're looking for investment advice on Ethereum, no. But if you want to, ask about something in relation to Bitcoin or why, maybe question some of the things you heard in the other rooms, feel free. Yeah, there's no bad questions.
Well, I'm sort of new to not only Bitcoin, but just taking, my own personal investments more seriously, excuse me, and just understanding more of what's happening to the financial markets and understanding, all of the significance of, what's going on with currency and all of that. And so, of course, I've been seeing that there's this debate between like Bitcoin and gold. And one of the big names that were big proponents of gold, I'm sure everyone here has heard of him, that guy, Peter Schiff. I was listening to a debate between him and Anthony something, I think he's big in the Bitcoin world. And one of the things I didn't quite understand that Peter was saying about Bitcoin is that he just kept railing on this point that like it doesn't create value in the way that like gold and other things do, and therefore there's no way that it could ever stand, I guess. And I don't quite, I'm just trying to understand, like, if I was talking to a friend that said the same thing, like, what would I tell them? Because I'm really into Bitcoin. From everything that, the little that I do understand about it, I do feel like it's more than just a currency. It's a really fascinating thing that could change society. You know, like I get really excited about its potentials beyond just money. But I feel like I wouldn't know how to argue. I feel like I know people that including like family, that think the same thing that Peter Schiff guy was saying. And I don't know how to argue my point about Bitcoin against that.
Can I take a shot at this one, Sandra, since...
Please.
Andreas, also real quick, one other thing. I did just want to reiterate that having the why Bitcoin and not Ethereum conversation is more than a valid conversation to have. So if you do want to share your thoughts on that, feel free. I'm sure others in the up here might disagree, but you know, I think a lot of people could learn from that too.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm okay with that. I just want to be respectful of the room that I'm in, and also, you know, I don't want to start a whole debate. But yeah, so Sandra, from a one of the things that Peter or has difficulty understanding is the programmable nature of Bitcoin as a technology platform, as a form of programmable money, as a system that is open to all participants to build and experiment and connect with, which is so completely different than the traditional financial system. And we see this a lot when you have something that changes the nature of an industry or a technology. There's this tendency to resist that change by clinging to this antiquated idea of some intrinsic quality that will be lost by this new thing. Whether that's, vinyl music has this perfect sound reproduction that you can't get with CDs, or film is the only form of real, you know, entertainment, and DVDs are not, or streaming movies ruin the film festival. In fact, they just said that at the Cannes Film Festival because they're pissed off that Netflix has taken away their industry. Or Kindle books aren't real books because you can't feel the paper. And of course, Bitcoin doesn't have intrinsic value because unlike gold, it doesn't generate value. But that's failing to understand that Bitcoin isn't just a money, it's also a network, it's a system, it's a platform, it's a software infrastructure, it's a series of applications that interconnect. And all of those things generate value. They generate value by creating new applications of money that didn't exist before. Applications like being able to pay a tenth of a penny to read an article and not have to be bombarded by advertising. Applications like being able to stream money in tiny amounts over a period of time. All of these applications like being able to transmit money globally in seconds that are open to anyone with a solar panel and a first generation smartphone. And it's that utility and the impact it has on the world generates enormous value. So if you try to look at the new technology and say, well, if a Kindle book reader is just a book without the tactile feel of paper, well, it's not, because, you know, on my e-reader, I can double tap on a word and get a definition and a Wikipedia lookup. I can't do that on paper. It changes the very nature of how I appreciate the technology, and it changes the medium. So the idea that Bitcoin doesn't generate value, I think, is really an antiquated idea and an antiquated conception of wealth and money as something that lies intrinsically and statically in a metal. And it's ironic because gold as a form of value is even more bizarre than Bitcoin if you really, really think about it. It has no intrinsic value. It's basically just pretty.
A couple of things. You go, Andy.
So I think what you should do is, if your friends say, hey, I was told that Bitcoin is not worth anything because it's digital. Like a good answer would be like, so if you have something that has the largest computational capacity on Earth, would you say that has some value? I mean, that's something, right? And then you could just bring up that like gold lost. It was something used as a store of value for a long time, and then it lost to central banks because fiat money is very efficient in transportation, right? You can take money everywhere, but you can't really take gold everywhere. And then now you have Bitcoin that you can take everywhere, but it also has similar properties to gold in regards to supply cap, right? So it's a fixed supply, and you can verify it. So now you have this new thing that is better than the two previous things. So it's not really like a revolution; it's an evolution of money.
Yeah, I might just add kind of my 2 cents. I think one way to think of it is Peter Schiff is simply wrong. He is just actually not correctly perceiving the Austrian theory of money. So he's meant to be an Austrian economist, but unfortunately, he seems to still cling dearly onto this idea of intrinsic value, when ultimately, if you stop and think back, why do we use money? It's the most saleable commodity, and money is sui generis. So it's this idea that, and this is probably the point that often people, when they're debating with him, they kind of go back and forth on this same point, is because he thinks in order for something to be money, it must do something other than money. And that's the key point that probably most of us disagree with him on, which is that Bitcoin achieves things that are just possible in no other way because it's programmable, because it can be sent all around the world non-custodially. So that's probably the key distinction in the way I would think of it. And the way I would counter that is to say, look, in this case, it's about how good is something at being money. That's why we select it for money. It's not about whether you can use it in jewelry or whatever else. That's how I would answer that point.
Hey, Stefan.
That's all really, really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Stefan, if you don't mind, for those who might not know what Austrian economics is, could you do like a really quick kind of top-down, just explanation and how it relates to Bitcoin?
Yeah, sure. So just a very quick explanation. It's called Austrian economics because some of the earliest practitioners were from Austria. Nowadays, many of the practitioners are actually in the US, but essentially it is a school of economic thought, and they tend to place more emphasis on spontaneous organization and cooperation and bottom-up economics, if you will. Like, it's this idea that you could have money that doesn't come from down on high with the king and the state and so on. And the important part around Austrian economics and Bitcoin is it's basically the only school of economics that is, think of it this way, is okay with no inflation or no deflation, right? It's just saying the amount of money, like once you set it, obviously if you start inflating it or deflating it, that's different. But once you've set it, society can just work on that basis. Like the price can just vary. So that's probably one key point, that it's the Austrians who understand that and explain that better. So and of course, not every Bitcoiner is into Austrian economics, but it's just that's part of my focus and how I explain it on my show and stuff. Obviously, people have their own different views, but I think that's one key thing to understand. And another point I would say as well is the Austrians are very clear on this idea of the boom-bust cycle, the Austrian business cycle theory. So they're saying, essentially, we are going through these big malinvestment cycles, and whether that is the dot-com bubble, it's property, or something else, Austrians are very clear at critiquing the central bank. So I guess that's kind of, in a very short nutshell, the key points there. Hopefully that helps.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Sandra, I'm going to send you back down unless you have anything else.
Could I ask one more question?
Yeah.
What about when people say, oh, but Bitcoin, it like the government's going to like outlaw it. Like you're not going to be able to use it to transact. If the government wanted to do that they could. Is that true?
Everyone waits silently for Andreas to unmute his microphone.
Oh, you want
Sorry,
me to
is
take
that a good question?
No, it's a great question.
No, Sandra, it's a great question, and it's one that comes up quite often. So the easiest way I have of explaining it is this. In countries where the rule of law is strong, like in the United States, the government can't simply decree things to be illegal, especially when those things are about private interactions between consenting adults who are not hurting anyone. Especially when those things have to do with forms of expression and association, especially when those things have to do with economic power, when that economic power can also be used for political purposes. So, for example, in the United States, there are many legal precedents that limit the ability of the government to tell private individuals how to use their money if they're not using them for explicitly illegal purposes. And you can't say, well, some people use it for illegal purposes, therefore no one can use it. That has also been discussed in law and failed as an idea. So so that's one of the problems here that would come up with an attempt to ban it. One great example of that is a Supreme Court decision called Citizens United, which you may have heard prevents the government from stopping private organizations from political lobbying and contributions. And it did so by very explicitly saying that spending money is a form of political speech, protected political speech. And banning Bitcoin would kind of run headlong into that ruling and many other fundamental legal concepts in the US. So in countries like the US, where the rule of law is strong, where the government doesn't have infinite power, they can say, okay, we're going to ban it. And immediately they're going to get sued by a lot of people who are saying, no, you can't do that. You can't ban it. And there's plenty of businesses and wealthy people who have enormous amounts invested in Bitcoin and don't want to see it banned. That would probably end up in the Supreme Court. And it's a battle that the government doesn't want to lose because a loss at that level would be catastrophic. It would establish these things as fundamental rights, and that could be very problematic. It's much more likely that places like the US are going to try various other ways, like, for example, saying that it's used by criminals and terrorists and that you shouldn't use it, that it's unstable, that you're likely to lose your money, that it's a bad investment. All of the things they're already doing, basically. In countries where the rule of law is weak, where the government can pretty much do whatever it wants and make rules arbitrarily, they have the opposite problem. They can ban it, but then they can't enforce that ban because corruption is endemic. And so you have Bitcoin, your government has made it a crime for you to have Bitcoin. The inspector comes to your house and says, do you have Bitcoin? And you go, me? Well, how much would I have to pay you to pretend that I don't have Bitcoin? And the inspector goes, well, I'll take Bitcoin if you're going to bribe me. And the irony, of course, is that it's not enforceable. And the hardest thing to enforce is a ban against financial activity because that's the thing you're going to bribe in. So, so to summarize, in countries where the rule of law is strong, a ban can't be done without pushback, even though it could be enforced. And in places where the rule of law is weak, it can be imposed, but it can't be enforced. I think that's very, very unlikely and would not actually result in Bitcoin being destroyed or disappearing.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andreas. Thank you, Sandra. I'm going to move you down.
Hey, Brekkie, I'm going to say goodnight to everyone. Thank you so much for hosting me and for your hospitality. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you all.
Anytime. We're doing this every Monday and Wednesday afternoons as well. Feel free to stop by.
It's a great forum. Good job, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Andreas.
And likewise over here. Cheers to all.
Good night, man.
Same for me, guys. It's time.
All right. You know what? I think, unless Stefan, I think it's way earlier on your side of the world. If you'd like to continue on, you're more than welcome. But if not, I think we'll be shutting this one down for tonight.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe it's a good time. Maybe it's a good time to call it a day. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Stefan. Thanks, Brekkie. Gotta go.
Thanks all. I'm going to play a little Bitcoin song to lead us out. If it's late where you're from, good night. If it's early, you've got all day to learn about Bitcoin. How exciting. And again, if you're new to Cafe Bitcoin, click on Cafe Bitcoin, join Cafe Bitcoin. You'll get notifications of all the fun events that we do. We've got this one. We've got the same thing on Wednesdays. We've got Bitcoin in different languages. Every morning, a new topic, all sorts of fun stuff. So tune in.
The silver bullet. What is it? The only evidence to show. Conundrum. Who or what man's wit devised a scheme so no one know? To think the brightest minds grow old, confounded by no answer clear, can see unfold the plan of gold, yet seemingly aside they steer. No need to mine and toil the hills, no need to think it can't be done. The yellow metal often kills. Just have some faith and have some fun. You are the one who needs to know, and no one else will come to steal. And all of us with faith to show, together make the fortune real. Bitcoin.
All right, and we're going to play one more song by Mr. Phil, Mr. Sue. I forgot about it, but I'm going to play it now, and then we're going to shut down the room. This is called ETF by Mr. Sue.
Let us follow the logic of things from the beginning, or rather, from the end, modern times. We are witnessing a complete riot against some class of experts in domains that are too difficult for us to understand, such as macroeconomic reality, in which not only is the expert not an expert, but he doesn't know it.
Self-sovereignty, beat ourselves through bankruptcy, which bubble's about to burst. This can't get any standards, anything but gold. Paper lies that we've been sold. That's what you've been sold. No proof or reason to be found. Safe under your mattress isn't sound. It's time we we can't afford this debt, so we owe it to ourselves. It's rampant all around, basing units we can't count. From the banks for interest rates rebound. The horse deposited on its load, tried for hope but got revoked. Evidence everything that we don't own. Your ETF is looking sure. All the hope is free and open source. The name of the game is built, but this Ponzi's ran its course. Cause we're all going in infinite cash. If you can't bring what we get taxed, the real system will collapse. A digital bill will you and this place not enough events. Sitting on sunshine from free forever sovereign. Owe it to ourselves to end
All right, everyone. That was ETF by Phil, who's right in the followed by speakers area. Give him a follow. He's a great musician. Did you know that there's such a thing as Bitcoin music? Well, now you do. And thank you all for joining for tonight's Q&A. Again, we are doing another one on Wednesday. That is Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. If you click on Cafe Bitcoin, you can actually see the schedule of events that we have so far. I'd urge you all to join Cafe Bitcoin again so you can get notified of all the events we're doing. If anyone in the audience is looking to run an event through Cafe Bitcoin, feel free to reach out to me. You can click on my profile and DM me on Twitter. And I think that is all for tonight, and we will see you next time.